name is Cha-Cha. I molested my 5-year-old daughter.
Janie Rogers, I hurt my kids.
What did you do then?
Say it. I burned them with cigarettes, and I penetrated them with objects.
Around you go for the past few days. That's all anybody wants to talk about is Mary Kay Letourneau. The phone lines are blazing off the hook. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to line 1. Jessica, first up in the queue. Jessica, your opinion on this bizarre story of obsessive love.
This obsession of hers has cost her her job, her marriage, her children.
All right, let's go to Joel and his car phone. Joel, have you been following the story of this 6th grade teacher doing the nasty...
A girl is never fully put together without lipstick and polish on her toes.
Let there be little guy's dream in this world. What, are you kidding me? Any guy out there would love that.
What about your son? What about if that were your son?
She has a Jones with this one kid. If they lock her up, you know what? Eventually she's just going to get out and do it again. She needs serious psychiatric counseling.
All right, let's go to Steve on line 3. He's so hot to trot. Steve, you're calling from a paid telephone.
Yeah, I am. This kid's, what is he, 13 now? He's got a kid, a baby that he's supposed to be helping take care of. And this teacher, she's already got 3, 4 kids. She knows what it's all about. I'd love to have the birds and the bees taught to me and have the experience of an older woman.
The 6th grade teacher, Mary Kay Letourneau.
Well, as a teacher, I think it's absolutely outrageous. I cannot believe that she has had an affair and bear 2 children with this. I am appalled. I am absolutely appalled, Curtis. I'm sorry. I'm just so overwhelmed with emotion.
Tell it to me like a story.
No one understands.
Make me understand.
October 10th, 1995.
What about it?
I died on that day.
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Hello? Oh, hey, Grandma. How you doing? Mom, the phone's for you. Mom, it's Grandma Schmitz. Hello?
I'm afraid I have said your father has gone.
Happy day.
And what
What?
My father has prostate cancer.
Well, people live a long time with that.
They gave 3 months to 2 years. Steve.
What do you want me to do about it?
I hear the sound of keys. Are they coming? I hate the sound of keys.
How did you feel when he said that?
He was just being his usual absent self. But something in me just let go. And I knew there was no hope.
She's an unrepentant pedophile, Charles. We're going for the maximum sentence.
Mary was my neighbor. I know her. She's a good mom. She was a great teacher. Parents used to fight to get their kids into her class.
And she had sex for 8 months with a 13-year-old boy, resulting in a baby.
Susan, she needs help.
Mary Letourneau doesn't think she's done anything wrong.
Well, not in her present condition. But I was thinking, if we could get her onto this medication...
She refuses to participate in any sex offender programs.
I think she would, if we could just get her onto this medication.
With all due respect, Dr. Newhall, until she admits she's committed a crime, I'm immovable.
Look, I think Mary is bipolar. I think she's got manic depressive tendencies. If we could get her onto this medication, Depakote, it would even out the highs and lows. It would stabilize her and bring her into her more reasonable self.
Right. Jail won't medicate her. I mean, let's get this woman the help she needs. It's what we all want, for her to admit wrongdoing and to get better, right? Susan, you're not trying to crucify her, are you?
Thank you.
Letourneau? Come on, what did you do, girls or boys?
Raped a 6th grader.
It was not rape.
What would you call it? What did you do to your victim?
He is not my victim.
He is your victim.
Did you tell your kids yet that their mommy's a child molester? And that she may do them? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't they mention that you had to tell them that?
Just a little boy with that smooth baby skin. Welcome to the program, Mary Poppins.
I am not going back there. They're telling me that I have to tell my own children that I am a child molester and that I might be a danger to them. I am not a child molester.
Legally, you are. Regardless of how he looks, regardless of how he sounds, Vili is 13 and the law doesn't care that it was consensual.
Okay, so if you find something mentally wrong with me, does that excuse me from that group?
I'm sorry, no. You pled guilty. And even if you get probation, you still got to do that group for 3 years.
I should never have pled guilty. Those women hurt little children, their own little girls. I'm not like them.
I know.
The Black OJ Gus T Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. This is our weekly Katherine Massey book club at the Cows. Today's date, Friday, July 11, 2025. So I have been told this is our third installment on Gregg Olsen's If Loving You Is Wrong. We are picking up on chapter 17. I think important to remember last week, we left off, they said, hey man, they got a substantial number of non-white people at the elementary school where Mary Kay is teaching. Substantial number of non-white children, although not many black, still about 2/3 classified as white children, but all, A-L-L, all of the teachers, white. The audio segment that we heard at the beginning, oh my, the 2000 fictional film All American Girl, about the Mary Kay Letourneau story. Now, even the title of this
All-American Girl. So obviously they're talking about Mary Kay here and not Vili. All-American immediately reminded me when they talk about most things, when they say All-American, they do not have in mind somebody who looks like Rick James or even Simone Biles. Really, that's not who they have in mind when they say All-American. And Dr. Welsing say, America, I am race. Then All-American Girl. Oh man, when they say an All-American boy, All-American girl, woof, they're not talking about Al Sharpton when they say an All-American boy. No. No, and Mary Kay, she a 30-year-old child rapist at this point. How is she an All-American girl? Wouldn't it be an All-American woman at least? Or anyway, that's the title. So we start with that right there. They start this film immediately, and I mean the first 10 seconds of the film is with a black female inmate, non-white, saying, confessing, admitting, I burned my own children with cigarettes and then I penetrated them with objects. That's how it starts in a black penitentiary, and then we pivot to the all-American Mary Kay, and it's lots of non-white females in this penitentiary. We have Not Like Us playing for a reason this here week, and you heard what they said at the end. But that's the very beginning of the film. That's how they want to hit you. Whammo. This is where they put this blonde, yummy white woman in here with all these black females in Washington State, where it's not even a whole lot of black females, right? So she says on October 10th, something in her died. I died that day. Now, the Million Man March, importantly, was on October 16th, 1995, and this all transpired like days after the O.J. Simpson verdict, so whatever. Anyway, Mary Kay says that her finding out that her father, John Schmitz, he's got cancer and, 2 to 3 years or what have you, and he might be passing away, and her husband, Steve, she says, hey, man, he's all uncaring and barely turns off his electric razor, and hey man, life is tough. And because of that, I shouldn't be giggling, but because of that, I got to commence child rape. What? What? And then they pivot to they're walking out of the police station and they're talking about the case, and they have a white man, presumably one of her neighbors, and he says, hey, Mary Kay is a good white woman. She was a great teacher, and she was an incredible mom. I said, pause. And then, again, this movie came out in 2000, so she had already been convicted and, everything by that point. Wait a minute. Let's get one at a time. So she was a good mom? Mr. Olsen told us last week that the neighbor said, man, she is a well-meaning white mother, but man, she done lost them children. We didn't codify. Did she lose them? Okay, let's go and get the flashlight. They hang down at the construction site. Let's go on down there. There they go. See at the concrete man. That's what he said last week. Is that good bombing? So we got that one right. Then he said she was a great teacher, that parents would fight and beat each other up to get in her class. Did we hear last week, same thing, Mr. Olsen, he said Mary Kay classroom was a little unstructured, that she didn't have CP time, she had Mary Kay time. She'd be so late, sometimes she don't even show up, maybe 2 hours late, 3 hours late, who knows. And they said the students' papers were so soiled and crumpled, looked like rubbish. Does that sound like she is an incredible teacher? I don't know, man. Anyway, so then we go back to the penitentiary. She's in the sex offender group, and they're mocking her. They call her Mary Poppins, which I guess is a name that she did have perhaps in real life. And they're talking, did you, and we got our phrase again. They say, hey, did you tell your children about your victim? This is, whoa. we are not going to use the word. He's not my victim. And that's exactly what we heard last week with Larry King. Now, we listening to a Hollywood movie. That's what All American Girl is. Hollywood, fictional, totally made up, right? What they'll say, it's mildly, loosely based on real events, but this is fictionalized, right? Dramatization, they'll say. Larry King is a real-life interview, so we've been told. Larry King told us the exact same thing last week. Hey, Vili is not a victim. Now, we got the V in kind of... Vili ain't no victim. Now, let's proceed. Wait a minute. What is Vili? If he... Come on, man. And then Mary Kay say, man, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Y'all, you got me in here with all these dark nigger gals and dark guys. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And she goes and she talks to her attorney. Says, I got to stay with these nigger guys. She said, yeah, you got to stay with these nigger guys. She said, I'm not no child molester. She said, well, according to the law, Mary Kay, yes, you is a child molester because you went on and pled guilty. So, yes, you are. So I can't stay with you. Yeah, well, yeah, you got to stay with them for the whole 3 years. Even if you get the probation or what have you, you still got to do the group. He said, man, I'm not like them. I'm not like them. I'm an all-American girl. You see all them... Come on now. What does it mean to be a white woman, specifically? We're going to get to it. Gregg Olsen. If loving is wrong. Seattle history. Mary swirling. Mary Kay. Say, Vili ain't no victim.
Chapter 17. Identical twins Amber and Angie Fish and their mother Joy and older sister Lisa were making a fresh start at Carriage Row when they moved into condominium unit 108 in 1990. The Letourneaus in 109 were their next-door neighbors. The first day, when the twins returned a naked 3-year-old Mary Claire home after the little girl went calling for the neighbors that had just vacated the Fish condo, they met Mary Kay. She was pretty and sweet and in need of some help. Too young for mall jobs, too young for boyfriends, and stuck in the South Seattle suburbs, Amber and Angie answered yes in unison when Mary Kay asked if they wanted to babysit. And from that day forward, the dark-haired, dark-eyed lookalikes would come to view Mary Kay, Steve, and their growing brood as close as family. But for the twins, the jewel of 109 was Mary Kay. It was more than that she was beautiful and blonde, though most preteens would have held her in high regard for the physical perfection she exemplified. For the Fish twins, their love of Mary Kay came from how she treated them and the way she showed a personal interest in them. She was more like a friend than a grown-up. I thought she was really young, Amber Fish recalled some years later. I always thought she was really young in how she looked and acted. She always made us feel older when we talked to her. She respected us. She talked to us all the time. We always felt that we were on a real communicative level with her. Angie agreed with her twin. She would go down to our level. She made me feel like an adult when I was 13 or 14. I think it was because she asked our opinions about the kids. She didn't just say, you need to do this and this. She asked for our input. When we were there, she had us interact with the family, so we felt more superior on her level. The Fish girls also adored Steve Letourneau. At 28, the handsome man was in perfect shape, outgoing and fun to be around. Their adoration went deeper. With their father out of the picture, the girls' only male role model was Steve. He was the other half of the perfect family that had been missing in their own lives. Steve spent time with his children, worked in the garage, and redid the kitchen cabinets. Amber Fish later wondered if what she had seen in those early days was an illusion. I thought they were the perfect family. That's what was so shocking about it. We knew there were arguments and disagreements, but they were beautiful, all-American people. I really thought they were honestly the perfect family. They were bustin' ass, she said. The condition of the Letourneau household was the opposite of the Fish family's condo. If Joy Fish kept a stable, spotless, and orderly home for her 3 daughters, Mary Kay's house was utter chaos, all day, all night. Nothing happened on schedule. Dinner was served at 10 p.m. so often that the twins thought nothing of smelling the barbecue smoke wafting into their bedroom at that late hour. Steve's making dinner again. Piles of school papers, toys, and books grew in every place possible, from the kitchen to the living room to the bathroom to the risers leading upstairs. Sometimes Mary Kay asked the girls to come over to help her get organized. While the house was cluttered, Mary Kay was positively fanatical about cleanliness at that time. She hated dirt and dust. If there were crumbs on the table, the minute she walked into the house, she grabbed a sponge to wipe up any crumbs, Angie said later. When Mary Kay needed help grading papers, she sometimes turned to the neighbor girls, and the 3 would be up until 2 a.m. carefully reviewing student papers. A few times the Fish girls stayed the night because it was just too late to go home. The girls chalked up the perpetual chaos to the different schedules of a 2-income family. Steve worked a late shift at Alaska Airlines, and Mary Kay was a schoolteacher with work that was carted home because there was never enough time in the day to get it done. And throughout the maelstrom of their lives, it was clear that Mary Kay had the upper hand. Steve was a follower. It was Mary Kay's way or no way, basically, Amber said later. They did what Mary Kay wanted to do. Only once did the girls see Steve lay down the law. When Mary Kay cut her finger and wanted to go to the emergency room, Steve told her no. They fought about it forever. I remember she got so pissed. She was bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. And Steve was like, "You're not going to the emergency room for that." The Fish girls figured it was a money thing. Money always seemed to be tight. At least cash was hard to come by. Whenever it came time to pay the girls for babysitting, Mary Kay would say Steve would pay them. Steve would say Mary Kay would pay them. It was the old checks in the mail, without the need to involve the postal service. The girls didn't care. Whenever they were paid well, but the money didn't matter. The Letourneau condo was a hangout, a place to gather with the all-American family and share their dreams or problems. Mary Kay was always willing to engage in long discussions with the girls. We used to talk to her all the time, and she'd get so sidetracked, Angie recalled. We'd talk about one thing, and 5 minutes later a whole new subject would come up. We spent a lot of time over there. To hear Steve's grandmother tell it, Mary Kay was a selfish girl who would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. What she wanted most, besides attention, was money. Grandma Nadine would never forget the time Mary Kay told her and her other daughter that Sharon should fork over the bucks she should have paid for child support when Sharon and Dick Letourneau split up. Nadine bristled. Sharon had paid for plenty, and Steve and Stacy Letourneau never went without anything because she didn't support them. Besides, it wasn't any concern of Mary's. But she wanted to make it her business. She wanted the money, Nadine said later. It was money that she should have paid for Steve to go to college, Mary insisted. Nadine looked at her and snapped. Look, Stephen is married. What do you mean? She should be paying for his college education. She doesn't owe him anything. For your information, you've got it all wrong. Who paid for yours? Grants, student loans, Mary Kay said. Which Stephen is still paying for, loans after loans. Well, I differ, Mary Kay said. Nadine had had it with her grandson's wife. You can differ all you want, little girl, but I really don't care, she said. By the spring of 1991, Mary Kay was 29 and expecting her 3rd baby. She loved being pregnant. She was not one of those complainers about morning sickness, feeling bloated, or fat. In fact, she seemed to thrive on the pregnancies. She was cute pregnant, Angie Fish recalled. She had all these cool maternity outfits. Amber corrected her sister. Those weren't maternity clothes at all. All the clothes she wore could be worn as maternity clothes. A lot of the time she would wear Steve's t-shirt with pants. She wore her maternity clothes even when she wasn't pregnant. Like a red jumper, she could pull it off. Chapter 18. Many of the neighbors at Carriage Row would agree that Mary Kay and Steve Letourneau and their children were nothing short of a beautiful family, all golden. Even so, no one could deny that the Letourneau children were allowed to run around the complex with little supervision. It wasn't that Mary Kay really lost track of her kids. As one neighbor put it, they were in different directions. Life at the Letourneaus was tumultuous. It would become even more so in September of 1991, when Mary Kay and Steve prepared to welcome their third child. As always, there was never enough time to get everything done. Mary Kay even worked the morning she went into labor. "Steve," said Shorewood's principal at the time, when she reached him on the phone, "you better get in here and get Mary and get her to the hospital. If you don't, she's going to have the baby in the classroom." At 10 pounds, Nicholas was Mary Kay's biggest baby. Mary Kay told all her sitters that she had some rules. The kids didn't get any junk food. No one could chew mint gum in the house. I hate that smell. No soda pop. For snacks, she preferred graham crackers, honey, and lots of cheese. In fact, the Letourneaus often made the trek to Costco to buy a mammoth brick of cheddar and a stack of tortillas for quesadillas, a family standby. Halloween candy was rationed for more than a month, and the kids seldom had McDonald's or other fast food, unless someone other than their parents took them. There were plenty more Letourneauisms, according to the Fish twins. Bum was used for butt or bottom. Rules were posted on the fridge, and children were marched over to the refrigerator for refresher courses in how to get along. Art was loved, music was played, and fun always ruled. Amberfish defended Mary Kay later when people questioned her parenting skills. "I still think she was an awesome mother, but as far as running the house, it was really hectic." The family tried having pets a few times, but given the way the Letourneaus ran the house, they couldn't make a go of taking care of anything. It was hard enough to take care of themselves. A pair of rabbits lasted a few months before going over to live at the fish condo. But more than anything, the biggest factor in their lives was their inability to make it anywhere on time. Mary Kay, friends used to joke, would be a day late to her own funeral. Like others who would come in and out of their lives, the twins learned Letourneau time. No one bore the brunt of the tardiness more than the babysitters. They learned to add an hour or two to Steve and Mary Kay's estimated return time. But even that usually wasn't enough. And most annoying of all, there was never a call to say they were running late. Amber blew it off and accepted the tardiness as just the way they are, but Angie let it get to her. No one else's time seemed to matter. Mary Kay would come home after being 2 hours late and sit in her car for a half hour and go through mail and papers, and I'd just be sitting there waiting to go home. After the kids were sleeping, I was just sitting there. She would irritate me. The lateness was in the coming and going. Often the twins would get an urgent call asking them to hurry over to help the Letourneaus get out the door for church, or a party, or a family gathering at Grandma Nadine's in Puyallup. The chronic tardiness was as puzzling as it was irritating. It wasn't that Mary Kay and Steve were running late because they'd overslept or had forgotten the time of the event. It seemed like pure disorganization. A gift was being wrapped in one corner by Mary Kay while she was doing her hair. At the same time, one of the little ones was instructed where to hunt for a missing shoe. Steve was helping iron a shirt while making a snack because one of the kids was hungry. Throughout all of it, Mary Kay remained in charge. She was always focused. Now you need to do this, I need to do this. She knew what was happening, but things were lost, and everything had to be perfect before she went out. Ironed, clean. Everyone had to be just right, Amber recalled. Every once in a while, Mary Kay would settle down on the ratty sofa or at the table and talk about her past. Sometimes she pulled out pictures of her family, her parents, and her siblings, and compared them to snapshots of her own children. She told the Fish twins that she and her mother weren't close, that her father had run for president, and that Stephen was special because he had a twin in heaven. She kept a portrait of her parents near her kitchen stove. She also told the teens next door that she had barely graduated from high school because she was a non-stop party girl. The revelation shocked Amber because it was so different from what she had imagined of Mary Kay's pool-perfect life in California. She was a cheerleader, a perfect student. and though she spoke of her family now and then, Mary Kay rarely spoke about Steve's family, with the exception of his sister, whom she did not like. In fact, she used Stacy as a weapon whenever she and Steve got into an argument. Mary Kay considered Stacy a pleasant enough girl, but not particularly bright. "If I've ever needed to get him in a fight," she told Amber one day when they were hanging around the condo, "I'd say, 'You're just like Stacy,' and that would really get him." It happens in nearly every family, and the reasons vary. But Mary Claire was Daddy's little girl, and Stephen was Mary Kay's pride and joy. Parents and children often pair off, and special bonds are formed. In the Letourneau household, it was clear to just about everybody that Mary Kay and her daughter didn't get along. They were always at odds. Stephen, however, idolized his mother, and she idolized him too. Mary Kay and Mary Claire butted heads a lot. Mary Claire was stubborn, and she didn't put up with anything. Stephen was Mary Kay's prodigy. That kid could do no wrong. Mary Kay wanted him to be the boy genius and worked at it really hard, a lot harder than she worked with Mary Claire, Amber Fish recalled. And from where one observer sat, the relationship between mother and son was detrimental to Mary Kay's oldest daughter. Mary Claire was most jealous of their relationship. I think that's why she leaned toward Steve so much. There were other factors at work, too. Mary Kay wanted her daughter to slim down, though to any observer the little girl looked just fine. She was a child, for goodness sake, not a fashion model. "I know she was very concerned about Mary Claire's weight," Angie Fish said later. "I remember when we first moved in there, and she was 3, and they were watching what she ate. Mary Claire's not allowed to have any cheese." Stephen was everything to his mother. Although the twins felt Mary Kay loved all of her children, she was closest to Stephen. The Fish girls remembered Mommy and Stephen days, when Mary Kay and her son would go out and do things together, while Steve played with Mary Claire. When Stephen got a little older, Mary Kay would take him shopping. They'd return from their outings with tired feet and bulging Nordstrom bags. The twins later talked about the shopping habits of their favorite neighbor. "She had really expensive tastes, more expensive than anyone I'd ever known," Amber recalled, "and that she could not afford," cut in Angie. "She was way out of her range," Amber continued. "She brought home bags and bags from Nordstrom when we knew they could not afford it. Shoes for the kids, a $200 dress for herself." Her best friend from her days at Arizona State, Kate Stewart, understood Mary Kay's quandary and her modus operandi. So what if she overshopped? Who didn't max out a credit card from time to time? Kate always considered Mary Kay a love's life kind of woman, one who lived each minute to the fullest. She knew what she wanted and went after it with a kind of gusto that few could emulate. And more than anything, she wanted to be surrounded by people who lived life the same way. That included her friends, her children, and her husband. Mary Kay was a woman who wanted a lot from the world, a woman who required a lot out of life. Yet there she was, trapped in a dull, mundane existence, in a crummy condo in Kent, Washington, with a husband she didn't really love. Her emotions quietly fraying like blue jeans. Mary Kay deserved more. Book 2, Teacher. Mary Letourneau is not only a gift to Shorewood Elementary School, but a gift to the entire Highline School District. A teaching colleague quoting the Shorewood principal's last evaluation of the teacher headed for disaster. "The school is suffering. The teachers certainly suffer tremendously from this. Teachers walk in those classrooms and ask, 'What has this done with my standing in my classroom?' Are they, the students, going to worry about me? It chokes me up to think of the impact on them and the students." Gary Rowe, grandfather of a Shorewood student. "This is not a case questioning our educational system or the delivery of curriculum." Mary Kay Letourneau in a press release, November 1997. "Before students left, I made sure I gave them a choice of a high five, handshake, or a hug. HHH. I got it from a teacher at Seattle U, and I did it every day with every student since my first second grade class. It was a way of touching base, ensuring contact." Mary Kay Letourneau on a teaching technique, 1999. Chapter 19. In nearly every way, White Center couldn't be farther from Corona del Mar, California. White Center. The name is a big joke among Seattleites who don't live there. Toss a rock, they say, and you couldn't hit a white person if your life depended on it. Nearby Top Hat is another with a moniker that doesn't fit the ambience of the place for which it is named. Those who live there shrug and acknowledge the obvious. You'd think a place like Top Hat would be a little classier, said one resident, aware of the irony. Though White Center's name is a joke, its nickname is worse. The slogan the Chamber of Commerce would like to forget is Rat City, from an infestation that local boosters claim has been annihilated. Although most know rodents rule the basements and back bedrooms of some of the Seattle area's worst housing. The projects appear tidy and nondescript, and some think they are a cut above some housing in Vili's neighborhood, a world of jacked-up cars, liquor bottles, and water-stained curtains. This is not Compton or Watts, but it is Seattle's version of the hood. Rap and hip-hop pulse in headsets and from boomboxes. Country, top 40 radio, classical, be damned. If other Seattle neighborhoods are more defined by money, cars, and lawn services, White Center is defined by the people and cultures that claim it. Cambodians, Russians, Samoans, and African Americans run the restaurants, go to the storefront churches, and their children stake out the Taco Time and Dairy Queen on Ambaum Boulevard. When drizzle doesn't send them for cover, some kids hang around the shores of a pond behind Evergreen High School, where drug use is so common deals are done in the light of day. This is the neighborhood of a boy who would be the catalyst for unbelievable change and dire consequences for Mary Kay Letourneau. This is the neighborhood that would become the home of her youngest children. Enrollment in the Highline School District had declined since the 1970s. After Boeing went nearly bankrupt and laid off most of its workforce, "Will the last person leaving Seattle please turn out the lights?" read a famous billboard. Enrollment dropped from 40,000 to just less than half that in the mid-1990s. Perhaps understandably so, those who were left behind to hold down the fort at Burien and White Center in many cases could not afford to move elsewhere. To the south of the Highline School District boundary in Des Moines and Normandy Park, and north to Shorewood and Seahurst, however, are the Gold Coast homes of the more affluent. "This is the land that time forgot," said Nick Latham, public relations flack for the district. "Progress jumped over the area, and not much has changed." When the former television reporter first came to work for the district, one aspect fascinated him above many others. The people who lived in the area never left it. White Center, Burien, Roxbury, whatever the address, it was their town. They are living within minutes of one of the most vital, exciting cities in the country, if not the world, and they may never, ever come here. It might as well be New York City. Nothing in Seattle interests them. They do not cross that First Avenue South bridge. In the center of the district is SeaTac International Airport, one of the nation's busiest, and the source of many jobs, and, without a doubt, the starting point for nearly all who live in the area. But it is more than that. Ironically, the airport is the area's biggest impediment to communication and traffic. It is also noisy, and as the airport has grown, nearby property values have plummeted, and people have departed for quieter environs to the north or east. For those coming and going, the airport is conveniently located between Seattle and Tacoma. For those who live close by, especially directly in its flight path, it is a disaster. Some schools have been so impacted by the noise that teachers have to stop lessons to wait for passing planes to go by. Families have turned up the volume on their televisions to ear-splitting decibels and learned to live with it. The Port of Seattle is public enemy number 1 in those neighborhoods, filled with people who are tired of the promises for noise abatement and the reminder that they knew what they were getting into when they moved there. The truth is, many didn't know. Airport traffic has grown steadily over the past quarter century, and many of those complaining have been doing so for years. Nick Latham saw the impact the airport had on the people of the Highline School District. The Port of Seattle, he said, was to blame. "My allegiance has changed since I took the job down there. So much power. They, the politicians, don't care about the communities, and they don't care about our kids. Should they have to suffer?" If White Center and the surrounding areas seem a bit hopeless, despite a proliferation of glitzy cheap signs of fast food franchises, Burien has retained its small-town feel. It even has a feed store. Like most of suburbia, it isn't a pretty place, but it's home to thousands who sleep there at night and drive to jobs in Seattle or farther out. In her early years at the district, Mary Kay Letourneau did a reverse commute. In the fall of 1989, she came from outside the community to teach second grade in room 20 at Shorewood Elementary. She was admired and loved by nearly everyone in those early years. Her energy was unequaled. Her ability to reach into a child's soul to pull out the dreams that she could foster was a gift. There wasn't a parent who didn't want their child in her class. There wasn't a little girl who didn't want to be just like the pretty teacher with the somewhat spiky, gelled hair. Hip hair. Patricia Watson was Mary Letourneau's principal for 4 of the teacher's first 5 years at Shorewood. She considered Mary Kay to be one of her top teachers, a nurturing presence in the classroom where some students needed that kind of caring in addition to their lessons. Mary was the type of teacher who looked for the best way to reach a student, and she would make the effort to find the way. She was also an excellent mother. Patricia would never forget the day Mary Kay brought her son and daughter to the office to meet her. Mary Kay was so proud of them, and it showed. Stephen and Mary Claire were groomed to perfection. Shoes shined, hair combed and parted. Over the course of several years, the Letourneau children would frequently come to Shorewood to wait for their mother. Steve would drop them off to be with Mary Kay, and they ended up in the principal's office coloring pictures. "I still have some of the little treasures they made me," Patricia said later. Chapter 20. By 1992, Mary Kay Letourneau had really wanted to sell the condo. She wanted to live in Normandy Park, one of the south end of Seattle's more exclusive areas. She and the children had found the dream home when out on a drive before Mass at St. Philomena, the Des Moines Catholic church the family attended, and where the older 2 children attended school. It was on a quiet street that looped around to commanding views of Puget Sound, Vashon Island, and the Des Moines Marina. The 1960s-era olive green house didn't have a view of the Sound, but it was on the edge of a lovely wooded ravine. At the condo, Mary Kay organized their belongings into boxes, cleaned like a fiend, printed 500 flyers, and served lasagna dinners to real estate agents. When the unit sold, she was elated. The family was moving up, but even so, Mary Kay emphasized to the Fish twins that although the new residence might have a better address than the condo in Kent, the house itself was nearly a fixer-upper. It also tested their budget, already strained beyond repair. Even with the proceeds from the sale of the condo, some of the down payment was coming from Steve's family, Mary Kay told the girls. "It's going to be tight for a while," she said cheerfully, "and it will be a long time before we can fix it up, but it's going to happen." As she spoke of the move, she was upbeat, animated, and very excited. So much so that Amber and Angie didn't want to reveal their own sadness. The Letourneaus were their dream family. Little Nicky was their baby. Stephen, Mary Claire, all of them had meant so much. The Letourneaus promised the twins they could continue babysitting. Steve said he'd take care of driving them back and forth from Kent to Normandy Park. It made the girls feel as though it wasn't over between them, really. Mary Kay continued to do her part in keeping the relationship alive. She phoned Amber and Angie more often than either phoned her. Sometimes she called when she needed a sitter. Other times she dialed their number when she only wanted to chat. Despite the warnings that the place needed a handyman's touch, the house surprised Angie and Amber. "I thought it was going to be a lot nicer," Amber later said. Angie, as usual, was more direct. "It wasn't even built right. The front door was on the wrong side of the house." If the house in Normandy Park was meant to bring happiness to the Letourneau family, Amber and Angie Fish wondered if it had been a flop. Even as teenagers, the girls could see that both Mary Kay and Steve were more harried and pressed for time than ever. "Steve didn't seem happy," Amber said later. "In the condo, he did seem happier. In the house, he was more cold, withdrawn." Mary Kay was working longer hours then, too. And though the sisters kept up with her on the phone, they didn't see her much. The days of hanging out were over, and Amber and Angie missed them terribly. Whenever Mary Kay called out of desperation for a sitter, Amber or Angie or both would come right over. They spent the night a few times at the Letourneau's new place, but by the following year, those kinds of visits had dropped off. Even so, they kept in touch by taking the kids out for ice cream or McDonald's every 4 months or so. The little enclave of 40-some homes that made up the Letourneau's Normandy Park neighborhood was a surprisingly tight group, even in the days of whirlwind careers and ever-evaporating time. What brought much of the cohesiveness was the network of children and the connection they gave to the adults who raised them. Ellen and Daniel Douglas had 2 children, Scott and Jennifer, the same ages as Mary and Steve Letourneau's 2 oldest. So it was inevitable that the Douglas family would get to know the Letourneaus, though they lived at opposite ends of the neighborhood. That Mary Kay and both Daniel and Ellen Douglas were teachers was merely a bonus. The children were always the primary connection. And while the kids shared many similarities, there was one difference. The Letourneaus were enrolled in Catholic school at St. Philomena, and the Douglas kids went to public school in the Highline district where all 3 teachers taught. I'm not sure why they did it. Maybe they wanted the stricter values of the church? Ironic, isn't it? Ellen asked later. The Douglas home was on a stunning piece of view property once owned by Ellen's grandmother. At one time, Ellen's older brother and his childhood buddy, lawyer David Gerke, rented the little house. Years later, when the grandmother died, the property was divided, and the north half sold to the Gerkes for a much-dreamed-about home that he would build one day, when the money comes in. In time, the 4 children were inseparable. There were lessons together, bicycle rides, trips to the grungy shores of Puget Sound, and for Scott, Little League baseball with Steve Letourneau as coach. A really young, active family is how Ellen described the Letourneau brood years later. Very involved with the kids, busy with the church. They were always busy, always hectic, and always late for school, meetings, parties, picnics, and life. Life was busy. They were overbooked, maybe not too organized. There were times when Mary Kay would drop off her children at neighborhood birthday parties, leave, and go to the store to pick up a gift, wrap it in the car, and return to the party, even though the invitation had been posted on the refrigerator for weeks. When Ellen Douglas figured out the frazzled ways of the Letourneau household, she made sure she was designated carpool mom for Stephen and Scott's Cub Scout meetings. That way they would not be stuck waiting for Mary Kay, and Ellen would be able to get the 2 boys to where they needed to be on time. Several years later, Ellen dismissed the lateness as inconsequential. Nobody was ever hurt by it, she said. When the quicksand of a scandal enveloped the blonde-headed family with the 4 beautiful children, Ellen Douglas wanted the world to know one thing. At one time, the home had appeared happy, and Steve and Mary Kay Letourneau were devoted to their children. At least she thought so. As much as Steve and Mary Kay sought a brand-name, status-soaked lifestyle, it was no secret among friends in the neighborhood that they had money troubles. One time, Ellen Douglas watched the Letourneau children when their parents went downtown to meet with the Internal Revenue Service over some back taxes that they owed in order to get approval on some refinancing. Another time, a neighbor listened as Mary Kay complained that St. Philomena wanted to send the kids packing for public school because she hadn't kept current on their tuition. It had reached the crisis point, and a letter had been sent home and overlooked. It was about 3 inches down in the pile on the kitchen counter, the friend said with a sigh. Ellen Douglas even hated to bring it up later, but she couldn't understand Steve and Mary Kay's choices. Both made okay money, both worked steadily. Yet they were struggling beyond belief, but they had the best clothes. Stephen had the coolest new bike. They even had a landscape service. They had no money, but they paid for lawn care. But if you're broke, you mow it and just let it go brown and you don't care, Ellen said later. We knew all along they weren't good at handling whatever money they did make. To a few, it still seemed that Mary Kay and Steve Letourneau were a team. The focus appeared to be on their family. Steve worked nights so that he could be at home when Mary Kay was teaching at school. When she returned to work after her babies were born, she'd pump her breast milk in the classroom, and Steve would make milk runs throughout the day. Steve was her best friend, Principal Patricia Watson said later. At times, the principal worried about Mary Letourneau, the person. Mary, the teacher, always gave 100% and more, but that was a problem. Even before I left Shorewood, Patricia Watson said years later, I had some concerns about her stability. She talked with Mary about focusing her priorities. She was staying up too late and running herself ragged. The principal worried that the teacher's own children were not getting enough of their mother's time. Mary, Patricia said more than once, you need to get some things in control. You got to set your priorities because you can't do it all. Mary would promise to give it consideration, come up with a plan, a compromise that allowed her to be the best teacher and the best mother she could be. She'd come back to Patricia and they'd talk some more. She was sincere in her understanding that something wasn't working. She was just really a perfectionist, Patricia recalled. When you are a perfectionist, you see every place that is not working for you. She could look at her children and figure out what wasn't right and beat herself up about it. In the fall of 1993, Mary Kay Letourneau moved into the annex, a cluster of Shorewood classrooms joined to the main part of the school by a narrow covered walkway to teach 6th grade at her request. She was pregnant with her 4th child, and after Christmas she delivered another beautiful daughter, Jacqueline. Mary Kay Letourneau was doing what she was born to do, being a mother and a teacher. In time, toddler Jackie would join her mother and big sister as they sang the songs from the Bette Midler movie Beaches and danced around the house. Like her father, Mary Kay would twist the lyrics and make them her own. She sang Happy Sunshine instead of You Are My Sunshine. Her children loved it. Chapter 21. In sad reality, the Steve and Mary Kay Letourneau marriage was a gorgeous package with nothing inside. They seemed to want the world to see them for what they had a right to be, pretty, handsome, and with money to spare. Flight benefits from Steve's job at Alaska Airlines allowed for a big part of the charade by giving them next to nothing airfare to anywhere they desired. Nordstrom credit cards and creative bookkeeping did the rest. Steve would later say he didn't want to know that he was in so deep and that his wife was a spendthrift extraordinaire. He didn't want anyone to know how bad it was. It was true. One of Steve's relatives recalled a cousin's wedding and how Steve and Mary arrived late, though not as late as usual. They looked beautiful, better than the bride and groom. Their children were equally decked out. The kids were all dressed like little Lord Fauntleroy, knickers. They dressed like they thought that they were the Kennedys or something, the relative said later. Steve and Mary were the gorgeous golden couple. She was the California girl with the stylish hair and the figure of a model. He was the square-jawed Dudley Do-Right, all blond and broad-shouldered. Mary Kay even called him Dudley Do-Right and teasingly gave him a bathtub toy depicting the cartoon Canadian Mountie. Their children were perfect, too, a balanced grouping for the family Christmas card. But as Steve and other family members learned, it was not so lovely after all. The Letourneau's money problems escalated after they moved to Normandy Park. Even with family help, things were speeding from bad to worse. They were behind in their payments for the van given to them by Steve's father in Alaska. Even the money given by a wealthy aunt and uncle for part of the down payment on the house in Normandy Park had not been enough to provide a cushion in their overwhelmed checking account. The mortgage payments had been too high, and the house was headed for foreclosure. The month before Steve and Mary Kay celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary, they filed Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Student loans of more than $27,000, medical bills, and assorted credit cards had overwhelmed them. They still owed the IRS more than $10,000. The total unsecured debt was almost $50,000. For assets, they listed a 1985 VW Jetta and a 1969 Buick. Steve had $25 cash on hand. The couple's difficulty with money brought the inevitable problems among the family lenders. Sharon and Mary Kay didn't get along at all, said a relative. They were always calling Sharon for money to pay the power bill, money for food. But they kept up the lovely front. Mary Kay flew off to California to visit Michelle or just to get her hair done. When they lived in Alaska, when they first got married, Steve would come down to Seattle for his hair appointments. From the outside, it looked like they were glamorous and rich. They were trying to be somebody they weren't, the relatives said later. They didn't care. They knew that someone would bail them out. They knew Steve's mom would give them money. She's not going to let her grandkids go hungry. Steve knew it was true, and it made him feel terrible. It was all a big facade. It always was, he admitted years later to a family member. In August of 1995, Stacy Letourneau was getting married in Alaska, and despite the fact that Mary Kay didn't care much for her sister-in-law, she was named matron of honor. She also insisted on helping with the wedding decorations. She even spent a week working on a collage for Stacy, something that she would keep for the rest of her life. It was that beautiful. The bride's colors were a blue tone and an apricot-like color that was hard to describe. Nadine and her older daughter, Sandra, went shopping for balloons for the reception decorations, but when they returned, Mary Kay said they had made a terrible mistake. "Those are not the colors. Those are orange. Take them back. They won't work. They'll never work," she said. Bullied into it, the women, led by Grandma Nadine, returned to the balloon store, only to learn they had the closest thing to apricot that could be found in all of Alaska. Nadine thought the whole fuss was ridiculous. Who in God's name is going to match those balloons with the bows and ribbons anyway? Who cares? She asked. They all knew. Mary Kay. That evening, Mary Kay took the kids in the motorhome Dick Letourneau had rented for extra sleeping quarters and drove 20 miles out to Eagle River to the reception hall. She worked all night, making sure everything was just so. It was after 3 a.m. the next day when she returned. Her way or no way. That was understood by everyone who knew Mary Kay, but most saw it as a sign of perfectionism. Mary Kay had experience with the finer things, and those pep rally-colored balloons were not going to work. But there was nothing she could do about it. No balloons of the right color could be had in all of Alaska. Sharon's older sister Sandra was on hand to help. In order to keep a clear path for the caterers' comings and goings, Sandra put a plant on a table and placed it in front of one of the doorways to block people from using it. Mary Kay moved the table, and Nadine watched as Sandra told her off. "I've had it with you, Mary Kay," she recalled her daughter saying. "I've taken all the shit I'm going to take off of you. You are dealing with the wrong person." During one of the Letourneau family visits to Anchorage, Sharon Hume took her granddaughter Mary Claire shopping to pick out an outfit for her birthday. She found a little denim shirt and vest at Lamont's, a mid-priced retailer, and fell in love with it. The little girl couldn't wait for her mother and father to see her wearing it. Steve praised his daughter for her good taste and told her how lovely she looked. "She was so proud of that outfit that she wore it for 3 days," recalled Nadine, who was up in Anchorage visiting at the time. When Mary Kay arrived from Seattle later, Mary Claire put on the outfit as a surprise. The next thing the adults knew, Mary Claire burst into the living room in tears. Steve and his grandmother asked her what was the matter. Mary Claire said her mother hated her new outfit. "That just makes you look fat," she quoted her mother as saying. Sharon was very upset. So was Nadine. With Mary Kay, nothing was ever good enough. Steve told his mom to let go of it, and he'd clear it up with his wife later. "Clear it up later?" Sharon repeated. "You know you are not ever going to bring the subject up. You're not ever going to ask her why. Is it because Grandma Sharon bought it for her, or is it not good enough?" "Mom," Steve said, "just let it ride." Nadine jumped right into the fray. "Who in the hell wears the pants in the family?" she asked her grandson. "You or Mary Kay? Yet I've never seen Mary Kay in a pair of pants." Steve didn't say anything back to his grandmother, and the old woman just shook her head. Mary Kay was a piece of work. You never win with her. She is that manipulative. And where did she learn it, she thought. Steve's grandmother was a forthright woman who never let a chance go by to speak her mind. Her family loved her for it, though there were times when they probably wished Grandma would just shut up. One of those times took place in Alaska, in Sharon Hume's kitchen, when the family was enjoying a salmon dinner. The boys, Steve, his childhood buddy Mike Mason, and his cousin Mike Gardner, talked about heading up north to stay in Mason's father's cabin. It would be a couple of days of hanging out, just like they used to do before wives and children. Everyone was up for it, but Steve was reluctant. He hemmed and hawed and just couldn't commit. "Well," he said, "I don't know. I'll have to check with Mary Kay." Nadine blew up. "God," she said, "are you so damned pussy-whipped?" Everyone laughed, and Steve turned red. Later, his grandmother told him she was sorry. "But I think you are. She's got the upper hand, and she knows how to use it," the old woman said. Steve just shook his head. Chapter 22. Turning north on 35th Avenue Southwest from Roxbury is a straight shot from White Center and the problems that come with that territory. With each block toward the central business district, the junction of West Seattle, come better homes, nicer yards, and that elusive pride of ownership. 35th Avenue is lined with trees, rows of green-dipped paintbrushes in spring, yellow flames in fall. The houses are older, some approaching a century old. Little northwest bungalows sit up high off the street in yards with lawns that drop perpendicular to the sidewalk. So steep are the yards that some homeowners hitch a rope to their mowers to drop them down and reel them up. No person could walk the edge. The Hogden house was a pretty lemony shade of yellow that brought cheer in the winter and complemented the turning leaves that marched up the avenue in the fall. The home of Lee and Judy Hogden and their 12-year-old daughter Katie sat like the others high up off the street. It was a house full of love, with no shortage of pets. The heart of their home was the kitchen, a wonderful room of clutter and computers. A kitchen island inset with a slab of marble dominated the center of the room. Above the island was a canopy of pots and pans. A row of family photos mingled with 8x10 glossies of film and television stars, a gift from a movie director friend of Judy's. The prize of the gallery was the signed photo of Betty Davis. The River Phoenix image had never been taken from the envelope. Someday, Judy, an accountant, would get around to it. But in September of 1995, she was focused on her daughter and her education, as she had been since kindergarten. She didn't know it then, but Katie's 6th grade teacher, Mary Letourneau, would have a profound impact on her daughter, in ways she couldn't have imagined or wanted. Up a narrow staircase was Katie's bedroom, a small space made larger by the high ceilings of a vintage home. Hers was the room of a young girl with deep emotions. Framed photos of her friends, classmates, Mary Letourneau, and Vili Fualaau were pinned above the dresser. CDs filled a shelf. Candles topped a nightstand. Classroom 39 was never neat. It held the clutter of a woman too busy to be bothered with housekeeping when there were projects to be created and lessons to be learned. An ancient map of Washington State, flanked by green chalkboards and bulletin boards that never went unadorned, hung in the front of the room. A sink and soap dispenser got plenty of use in that classroom. Tempera paint splattered the wall, and sponges were stained the color of rainbows. Beams were painted with the hues of the Seattle football team, the Seahawks. The gridiron theme was the legacy of a previous teacher, from days when teachers were able to give rooms a personal touch. The annex was isolated from the rest of the school, and Mary Kay's room was on the westernmost end of the building. 2 50-year-old cedars blocked the view to the courtyard area and the classrooms across the way. The setting suited the teacher's style. She was a hands-on educator who believed that experiences count as much, if not more, than what can be found on the pages of a book. If that meant noise, that was just part of the deal. In the 1995-96 school year, as in other years, Mary Kay had a table set up where a group of kids could sit and work together. The kids at the round table were an exclusive lot. They were the chosen. Mary Letourneau had a warm word for all of the children in the class, but Vili Fualaau, Katie Hogden, and one of Vili's cousins, Tony, were a little bit more special. As Katie saw it, Mary did her best to make the other kids feel like they were close to her. But there was a slight distance in those relationships. Those kids wanted to be close with their teacher, but she didn't allow it. Not in the same way that she did with Katie and the 2 boys. Katie didn't see the relationship between Mary Letourneau and the kids outside of the round table as friendships. She called me to talk. She wouldn't call them to talk. They'd call her. She would always be there for them, always have time for them. Besides me and Tony and Vili, I don't think she called them the other kids in the class. Years later, Judy hugged and smiled with the memory of Mary Letourneau and the attention she paid her special students. One thing I noticed was that there was a handful of kids in that class that Mary saw something special in. After Katie graduated from 6th grade, Mary put her arm around me and said, "Katie is truly a gift from God, a very special young lady." She taught to those kids, and the other kids came along for the ride. Mary had her special kids, and she focused in on them. I think a lot of the other kids were just there. Of course, not every child in the classroom made it to the round table, but whenever Mary saw a child with talent, art was always the most precious gift. She did what she could to foster emerging abilities. Mary thought nothing of reaching into her own purse to pay for art supplies for a child who came from a financially strapped family. Other teachers did it too, but in some of the schools in the Highline School District, such supplementation would have proved costly. One child, a quiet and sensitive girl, was adept at creating sculpted forms, and Mary Kay went out of her way to see that she had supplies. It wasn't only Vili Fualaau who seemed to benefit from the extra attention. She was an excellent teacher, Katie remembered, but our school couldn't really provide everything she needed to teach every student the way she could have. She kind of nurtured the ones that had gifts that could be helped, because she knew that if she didn't do it, they'd go on to Evergreen or whatever school and probably wouldn't have thought of taking care of those gifts themselves. For the most part, students loved her for it. Said one, she went out of her way to help kids when she saw something that interested them when it seemed like they didn't have a lot of joy in other parts of their lives. There were a lot of troubled kids in my class. It was an interesting year. If Vili was the artist, Katie was the writer. It was her love of writing that she thought first bonded her to Mrs. Letourneau. Be it poetry, short stories, even more typical reports, Katie infused her work with originality and a sense of fun that her teacher enjoyed, and to some degree identified with. I always showed my work to her, and she was amazed, because it was so much like how she writes. It was the same perspective. We used to make jokes about being left-handed and being divergent. That was the thing of the year, she said. As the weeks of the school year flew by, Katie found herself redefining the relationship with Mary Letourneau. Mary Kay told her how inspiring she found her students' writing, the control she had of the language, the freshness of her perspective. They'd talk for hours about their thoughts and feelings and how to capture it all on the blank page of a tablet. There was a lot of trust, Katie said later. She was somebody that I could look up to as an adult, and she was also somebody I was equal with at the same time.
Rat City 206. Out of all the locations that have been mentioned, I'm trying to prick my brain here. I don't think I've been far enough south that I know anybody who lives in Normandy Park. I don't think I've broadcasted there, and I don't think I've broadcasted from Rat City, White Center, but I think all these other spots, we got them. Like that they've mentioned, I have been to Rat City, White Center many times. Now even that, the fact that they will say White Center, which I had not heard before, that White Center, couldn't hit a white person with a rock in White Center. Now that right there tells you, wow, it's not no whole lot of dark people in Washington State, period. Because it is still a lot of white people in White Center. It's just more, as same thing I've been saying now 3 weeks that we've been reading this book. As you move south from Seattle, more dark people. It's still not tons because it's Washington State, but it's dark. Like you go to Tacoma, it'll be more dark people there than Seattle. See? White Center, all that stuff is south of Seattle. Now, obviously not Normandy Park, I don't think. But generally speaking, like Renton, it'll be more dark people there than Seattle. Again, all this stuff is as you move south from Seattle. Anyway, Rat city white center. Cannot believe we get to go into even more detail about all of that today. Man, I would have lost my mind if I'd still been in Wisconsin while we were reading this. 206 Seattle. Anywho, number to dial 720-716-7300. The code 564943. Pound, press star 61 if you would like to participate. Man, I should have done today's broadcast. I guess I can't. What am I doing? No gripe. Today's broadcast 206. I looked up my direct sight line, and I mean, all I have to do is boop, look straight ahead. Beautiful, gorgeous 80-degree summer day of Seattle, and bang, Mount Rainier lined up perfect. All the snow caps and beautiful. Now I normally am not lined up for broadcast time to be right at Mount Rainier, but for today, call it Mary Kay Day, Mount Rainier. I guess the best view I could have taken maybe be Cracky Park, or if I could have got the Space Needle, which I would have had at Be Cracky Park. But it's not too many better views I would take. Green Lake maybe. Not too many. Richmond Beach. Yeah, Richmond Beach. But that's not Seattle. That's not Seattle. See, Richmond Beach is north. I'm going way afar, somewhat, but you're not going to hear them mention Richmond Beach in this book, I don't think, because that's north. Even fewer dark people. But I love Richmond. Love Richmond. Anyway. 206. The number to dial. 720-716-7300. The code 564943. Pound, press star 61 if you would like to participate. SeaTac Airport, one of the busiest in the country. Yes, it is. Anyway, let's see, in the email, forgot untiljustice@gmail.com, untiljustice@gmail.com. Word count for the text, it came up last week, I think, so I think I got it precise this week. Words that we have talked about already. I guess you can let me know if there are others. I'll share if I, grasp others as we continue. Golden and All-American. That's one. I might have to check those two because they're coming up frequently a lot as well. But rape is in Mr. Olsen's book 29 times. Blonde is in Mr. Olsen's book 24 times. Love is in Mr. Olsen's book 300 times. I even messed up the posting online. I have to correct that. But it's in there 300 times. I had to keep going and reloading 300 times. Isn't that crazy? System of, I can't even say that's crazy. That is the system of white supremacy. And most of that is not, because love is in the title of the book. Like, you can scroll through if you have an ebook and see where the context of where love is being mentioned. It is not the title of the book, like being on every page, so that's running the way. No, it's actually in the body of the text about 300 times. I think it was three. It might have even been close to 300 on the dot. I'll go back to verify, but 300 times for the word love. Rape not even in the book 100 times. Oof. Any hoodles. Let's see. Folks who dialed in, if you have commentary. Oh, and one more share. Caller from last week said, did the black press cover this at the time? I thought, great question. Let's see. I went to investigate. I checked the Chicago Defender, Ebony Magazine, Buffalo Challenger, L.A. Sentinel, other black Pittsburgh Courier, other black publications that existed during this time period to see, did they say something about this case? Thus far, I have not found any. Yep, 300. I double checked 300 times the word love in the book, but thus far I've not found any publications, so-called black press from that time period, where they talked about the Mary Kay Letourneau case. That might have been many people classified as black said, I don't see the relevance. Mary Kay didn't have Negro students. Vili is not black. And this case did not get discussed as an act of racism. So, hey, maybe. But, man, how many Mary Kays do we think are in the classroom? Just making sure I'm clarifying. How many white women teachers do we think are specifically preying on non-white boys in the classroom? I don't know, but that great question from the listener, at least at this point, I've not found any articles from the so-called black press during this time period that directly talked about the Mary Kay Letourneau case. If anybody can find some, please share. That would be awesome. I'd love to know what they did. They talk about this as an act of racism? And did they talk about this as a concern that black parents should also have? Like, whoa, we send our children to school with a lot of Mary Kays. Maybe we got something to think about too. If that did happen, let's see it. But at least at this point, I've not located that sort of material. Fuller did pay attention. Fuller might be one of one again, because I can't, at this point, he would be the only person. I don't know if he published an article or maybe he gave some talks at that time, lectures, where he made sure Mary Kay Letourneau, and what he told me, Mary Kay Letourneau, this is exactly the way you should think about sexual intercourse between white people and non-white people every time. Every time. And he emphasized racist people classified as white, they enjoy the childlike state of us, Vili, non-white people, because we do not qualify as women and men. We are boys and gals, and they like that. That's Jay Dahmer too, by the way. untiljustice@gmail.com. Let's see. Number to dial, or excuse me, I'll get folks who dialed in. Let's see. Switchboard, folks with a hand up. Oh, since we have a lot, I'll get my question. So if we got people that haven't participated before, all that. If you heard about this case, which I guess a lot of us did this case get discussed as an act of racism? Even if you, if you didn't hear anybody else, did you, when you heard about this, when you had your parents tell you about this, or however you found out, you say, man, that old racist Mary Kay, she went and got that old non-white boy and up there raping him. Man, that is racism right there. Did people think that way, or was it just, love is, love don't mean nothing, age ain't nothing, were you just thinking that, or were you just thinking sex crime, or, whatever. Folks who dialed in with a hand up, if you have commentary to share, line should be open. Proceed.
Can I be heard?
Z's mommy. Oh, educator. See, she's not teaching right now, but educator in the classroom. Did this case get mentioned when you're going through training to be a teacher? Did they bring this up? Like, hey now, don't you be no Mary Kay in the classroom. Did that ever happen?
No, it didn't get brought up when we had to do like training for children about like abuse. It never got brought up.
Disgraceful. And she's from California. Isn't that a disgrace? Never mind. Proceed, ma'am.
Green, yeah, I didn't, to answer your first question, I knew about the case, but yeah, it was never presented, or I never thought of it as an act of racism. I did think of, like, that it was just an act of abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, but I didn't think of it as an act of racism back then. I do now. Let's see. And yeah, I didn't know how much time she spent, or that she was living in California, close to where I actually live right now. So it was really interesting, like how you were hearing about all these cities, also hearing about them when they were talking about her in her teenage years. Interestingly enough, I actually visited White Center last year. That was my second time in Seattle ever. And it was funny because right when we got in, V was very like, why is it called White Center? And I didn't look into it enough, but I will because I think that's really interesting. But funnily enough, I actually felt a lot safer in White Center than I did in parts of Seattle proper, like downtown Seattle, etc. But I think it's interesting that it's known as a non-white area, but it's also like an unincorporated region. I remember reading that it's an unincorporated city, so I think I have to do some more research into that because I'm wondering, like, is it unincorporated because there's a lot of non-white people and they've never needed an official city in Seattle? I don't know. The book's obsession with her blondness and this like Nordic ideal and her thinness is really interesting. It almost feels like the author and anyone who interacts with her is just like in a trance because of her blondness. I don't know if I'm guessing she's like a natural blonde because it seems really common for white women to be blonde, so I don't understand why that's such a topic or why it's brought up so much. But it seems really interesting, especially because it seems like her blondness is the reason why people just overlook a lot of her bad qualities. Like, I feel like being consistently late is just being very selfish and self-centered, and somehow it's okay and normal because she's, I guess, blonde and pretty to white people. And then just like her bad parenting, I know the last book club, her son was like walking towards construction fields, and then I think in this one, I might have missed it, but it said that her daughter was naked and that the neighbors had found her. Just really, really horrible parenting. I don't know if she has, to me, I don't want to excuse her because I do think like she's a racist and she's like very manipulative, and she specifically targeted this family and these children because they were not white and because of whatever lack of parents or lack of people in their lives. But she also gives me, like when I listen to interviews or watch her, she just seems very mentally disturbed. And I thought it was very interesting how Steve, of course, got a down payment for his house from his father, even though I think he was working at a baggage handler job, I believe, and she was a teacher. There's just so many white people I know who get down payments for their first houses from their fathers, and they're always like, this is my starter home. I don't even think a lot of black people have an idea of a starter home. They just have an idea of, I just would like a home, if that's even possible for them. So I thought that was interesting. And yeah, I thought it was very interesting how she only gave attention to a few children and that everyone kind of knew it. I don't understand how she gets, I understand how, but it's very interesting how she gets away with behavior that teachers obviously shouldn't have, by like having certain kids that she pays attention to and ignoring many others. It's interesting. And then I did, from listening to a book club, I did listen or watch that interview that they had, Mary Kay and Vili. It was like a full interview about, I think he was around 35 or so then. And it's quite sad. I felt really bad for him because you can kind of see he's slowly putting it together that he was or is still a victim, and he's being abused, and she's abusive to him. It's a very interesting video to watch to understand and analyze how people can be abused. And, like, you can see it, you know, and how people can manipulate others. Or she's very mindful about certain words, about when she met him and things like that, because she met him, I think, when he was in second grade or something like that. And then I think in one point in the interview, he says that he's 35 now, he has children that are teenagers, and that he would never, you know, like, be interested in someone that young, sexually, romantically, because of their lack of maturity. And I thought that was really, really sad, him coming to that realization on camera. I think that's all I have to say. But it's just a very, very sad case, because not only did she, like, sexually abuse him, defile him, but he also became a parent at such a young age without really understanding, and she probably did that on purpose to, like, lock him into this relationship, because it seems like he wanted that family. But, yeah, that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Much obliged, Z's mommy. One, I'm so glad that she got that commentary in about the dangers of Seattle proper. And the first location she mentioned was downtown Seattle, which is really sad, because downtown Seattle should be like the most cracking place. It's on the water. Like, what the hell? How many downtowns are on the water, literally? It is the most, or one of the most dangerous locations. I don't think there is any, in our 16 years of broadcasting, I don't think there is one record or time where I broadcasted from downtown. See, like, oh my God, I don't even know where, I wouldn't even know where to go, and I would feel safe where I could sit and not have my head on a swivel and actually pay attention and focus and do a broadcast in downtown Seattle. Like, oh my God. I don't even like going to downtown Seattle for the film. I had to go to downtown Seattle for the film festival to see soundtrack to Coup d'etat last year and a number of the films for this year. That's one thing you hate about the film festival. It requires me to be downtown Seattle at night. Oh, God. Might as well be back in Milwaukee. Yes, it is well, depending on what part you're in of White Center. Yes, I would rather be there in terms of safety than, I'd rather be almost anywhere than downtown Seattle. Like, woo, run downtown Seattle. That's where Pike Place Market is. Like, anytime they show Seattle, that's what I mean. Like, that is an abomination to have downtown Seattle to be that, like, run, don't be, run. But you just heard. And it's been that way forever. I've been here for 20 years. It's been that way forever. U District is really bad too, which is like 2 blocks from where I am right now. Also, another spot you do not want to be there 10 p.m. or later, school in or no. Run. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up, proceed.
May I be heard?
Lauren, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. So today, when you played that audio segment before session number 1, and it was playing the segment from that movie, All American Girl, I did note that Mary Kay's character said he's not my victim, and then she said, I'm not a child molester. And the lawyer's like, well, regardless of how he looks and how he sounds, Vili is a child. He was 12 or 13, and at this point, I think, the people who are listening to this book in the book club have Googled what he looked like at that age, and he looks like he was 12 or 13 years old. I don't know what she's talking about. And in that movie, they got a 19-year-old to play Vili. Hey, that person can vote. They can join the army. That is not the same thing as a 12-year-old having sex with their 34-year-old white woman. At the beginning of chapter 17, when the identical twins, Amber and Angie Fish, move into the condominium next door to Mary Kay, and her 3-year-old daughter turns up at their house naked. Okay, I think that means that her children leave the residence alone a lot. For the first day you move into the unit, the child comes to your residence naked. That happens all the time, I think. And they were talking about Mary Kay, and they said she was beautiful and blonde, though most preteens would have held her in high regard for the physical perfection she exemplified. And I do think that blondness was related to this perception of physical perfection. And I don't know if she's actually naturally blonde. She might have been blonde when she was a little girl, but I think her hair is dark brown, and she colored it. I shouldn't say is, she's dead. But it looks like her hair was dark brown, and she bleached it to make it appear blonde. When you see pictures of her, like the bottom, around the nape of her neck, the roots, that looks dark brown. And one of the little girls, Amber Fish, she said, I thought she was really young. She recalled some years later, I always thought she was really young in how she looked and acted. She always made us feel older when we talked to her. She respected us. She talked to us all the time. We always felt like we were on a real communicative level with her. And it seems like Mary Kay made a lot of young people feel like this, less like children and more like an adult, but they're still children. So I think this adultification is one aspect of her incorrect interactions with children. Yeah, I think that's the best way to say that. The text notes that if the neighbors, the twins, it said the condition of the Letourneau household was the opposite of the Fish family's condo. If Joy Fish kept a stable, spotless, and orderly home for her 3 daughters, Mary Kay's house was utter chaos. All day, all night, nothing happened on schedule. Dinner was served at 10 p.m. so often that the twins thought nothing of smelling the barbecue smoke wafting into their bedroom at that late hour. That's terrible. I think children need organization. Children need stability, and it doesn't sound like that's what's going on in their household. This whole book, well, not the whole book, but when it talks about Mary Kay and Steve, it seems that she pretty much dominates that relationship. She makes the decisions. She does what she wants to do. And in this chapter, in chapter 17, it gives an example of one time Mary Kay doesn't do what she wants to do. And it says, it was clear that Mary Kay had the upper hand. Steve was a follower. It was Mary Kay's way or no way, basically, Amber said later. They did what Mary Kay wanted to do. Only once did the girl see Steve lay down the law. When Mary Kay cut her finger and wanted to go to the emergency room, Steve told her no. They fought about it forever. I remember she got so pissed. She was bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and Steve was like, you're not going to the emergency room for that. All right. So the one time Mary doesn't do what she wants, it's like her safety's in danger. She's not allowed to get medical care. But the thing is, that lady could have just got in her car and went to the emergency room if she wanted to. She did everything else she wanted to do. She didn't ask Steve permission before she had sex with Vili, unless they left that part out. She absolutely could have went to the emergency room. She chose not to. And I just think that example, I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of it, but it just made it seem like he didn't care about her welfare or whatnot. And I don't know. Maybe he didn't. Let me see. So in chapter 18, it says, even so, no one could deny that the Letourneau children were allowed to run around the complex with little supervision. It wasn't that Mary Kay really lost track of her kids, as one neighbor put it. They were in different directions. Life at the Letourneaus was tumultuous. It's like, even when people admit that she doesn't know where her children are, they immediately make some sort of an excuse. Let me see. She also told the teens next door that she barely graduated from high school because she was a nonstop party girl. The revelation shocked Amber because it was so different from what she had imagined of Mary Kay's cool, perfect life in California. She was a cheerleader, a perfect student. I mean, I don't know. Mary Kay kind of does what she wants to at this point when the child is talking about her. And it seems like she did what she wanted to earlier. I agree with the previous caller, Z's mom, and it says it in the text right here, no one else's time seemed to matter. And I do think that shows that you don't care about other people when you're just always late, making people wait and whatnot. It shows you're inconsiderate. The interactions with the daughter, she doesn't really seem to like that first daughter, Mary Claire. You know, she's 3 years old and she's saying Mary Claire can't eat cheese. But earlier in the text it said that they would go to Costco to get quesadillas and a big block of cheese. So if this is something that her family does on a regular basis, eat these cheese quesadillas, and she doesn't allow the 3-year-old to eat cheese quesadillas, kind of seems like mistreatment. I'm not saying cheese quesadillas are really healthy or anything, but everybody does it, but you won't allow the 3-year-old to do it. It's like, it's a way of making her seem like she's not like everyone else in the family. That a child would notice that. The author, Gregg Olsen, he seems to talk about white people without really saying non-white people. You know, he'll say just weird things. Like at the beginning of the text, when he was talking about the school and that there was non-white people at, I think it was Shoreline Elementary, if that's the name of the school, he'll call them renters or children who get free lunch. This one, like in chapter 19, said, you think a place like Top Hat would be a little classier, said one resident aware of the irony. And then he was talking about just jacked up cars, liquor bottles, water-stained curtains. And this is not Compton or Watts, but it's Seattle's version of the hood. Rap and hip-hop pulse in headsets and from boom boxes, country, top 40 radio, classical, be damned. So white people are supposed to listen to country, top 40 radio, and classical, any decent person, but I guess the people in Compton or Watts don't do that. And so he just lets you know that, hey, you know, this is where the non-white people are. The White Center and the surrounding areas seem a bit hopeless despite a proliferation of the glitzy, cheap signs of fast food franchises. Burien has retained its small-town feel. It even had a feed store. Like most of suburbia, it wasn't a pretty place, but it's home to thousands who sleep there at night and drive to jobs in Seattle or further out. Now, a couple of paragraphs before that, he was talking about, the author said one aspect fascinated him above many. Nick Latham said that the people who lived in the area never left it. White Center, Burien, Roxbury, whatever the address, it was their town. I don't think that's true. Like, maybe the non-white people don't get around, maybe they don't get to Seattle as much or whatever. I don't know. But I think white people can go wherever they want to, whenever they want to. They can go to Seattle anytime they want. And it just says right here, hey, they're driving to Seattle to go to work. So I don't see how both of those things can be true at the same time. But the author didn't say that. Nick Latham said it one time, and then it seems like the author made the other point. But they are contradictory. Yeah, I have one more thing. Her sending the children to Catholic school, and her and the two other people, did it go too far? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so her and the two other people in the neighborhood, they were also teachers, and they were saying, their three children went to public school, and Mary Kay, she sent her children to the Catholic school. And she said, I'm not sure why they did it. Maybe they wanted the stricter values of the church. Ironic, isn't it? Ellen asked later. I think maybe Mary Kay didn't send her children to public school because she didn't want them to go to school with non-white people. That's a possibility, and that's all I have for right now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
That's so lame. That's so lame. She didn't want them to be, and it's not even that many non-white people to distance from. Dang, have to. Anyway. I do think that is important, the way not stating non-white people, renters, and having other euphemisms and ways of pussyfooting to not say these are non-white people that we're talking about, like Vili. Very important. And then even the characterization of the neighbor, this is the hood, like, one, I did not know that White Center is like official, not Seattle. Unincorporated this, I did not know that. Lived here 20 years, it doesn't look that different. I mean, yes, some parts of Seattle, wow, breathtaking, beautiful. Downtown Seattle, because of the safety, is not one of those locations. If it was safe, it would be. But because of the safety, it's not. And there are lots of places throughout Seattle that, man, you want to talk about the hood. Oh, my God. Go to downtown Seattle at midnight tonight, or any night. Hood-ish, man. Anyway, but in terms of the people that live there, non-white, they don't leave. Obviously, the white people, they leave and do what they want. They Uber it up and all the rest of it. Got their Teslas and whatever. But the non-white people don't, like, man, White Center, on a typical day, you could get, I mean, if we're just talking from White Center to some place in Seattle, like you don't have to get to like downtown or the opposite end of Seattle or whatever, just get into Seattle someplace. This could be like a 5-minute drive. I guess they didn't have scooters to the degree that they do now, but I mean, this would be an easy scooter ride from White Center to, where are we going? Downtown Seattle? That could be a scooter ride. That is if it's no traffic, White Center to downtown Seattle is like 10 minutes if it's no traffic. Even 20 years ago, no Uber, no Lyft, I do not believe non-white people in White Center would, as a non-white person who has lived in Burien, which is close to White Center, the suburb he just mentioned, Burien, it's the same thing. It's 10 minutes to get to downtown Seattle. I do not believe that as a person who lived in Burien without a car, I went to Seattle all the time. I just don't believe that, and it could just be the author practicing racism. Anyway, certainly not now, because I mean, that's a scooter ride, much less, all the other stuff. Like, really? Come on. Let's see. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up, proceed.
Greetings, Mr. Renegade, callers, listeners. This is Fred Douglas. I was thinking about, you mentioned about how many Mary Kays in the classroom, but I was also thinking about not just, these women going after children, but also non-white male teachers. I remember there was a program that was done maybe a couple of years ago now, where a non-white male gave his doctoral thesis, and I think it was on the experience of non-white black males in the classroom in schools. And one thing he talked about was what he was advised against including in his thesis was the experience of black male teachers being pursued, hit on by white female teachers. And so there aren't that many non-white black male teachers to begin with. And so you're going to have just kind of adds to the, just the negative experience that black males face in schools, and I'm sure, non-white males in general. When you talked about the different words there, I was wondering how often the words beautiful and perfect appear in this book. That's one of the things I've noticed, those words appearing often in close proximity to blonde. I had a chance to watch about half of the All-American Girl movie. And I tell you, one thing I thought about was Carolyn Bryant Donham. And I thought about, I am more than a wolf whistle, because the way that Vili Fualaau is portrayed, is very similar in some ways to the way Carolyn Bryant Donham describes Emmett Till. Even in this movie, he makes a comment where they're about to engage in sexual activity. I've done this before. Emmett Till said I've had sex with white women. And in that film, he's the one pressuring her into having sex, and he's so knowledgeable. And like Miss Lauren pointed out, that actor, his name is Omar Aguiano. He was 18 or 19 when this film was made, and he's portraying a 13-year-old in that. So a lot of racism in that movie. Mary Kay definitely looks for people to control, and I thought it was interesting in the book. It talked about how, her life is generally chaotic, but there are certain rules that she has in place that she wants implemented. And they're posted on her, I think it was the refrigerator, it said. And, most things go, like the kids can roam around and whatnot, but if they disobey one of those rules, it's going to be severe consequences, it seems, based on that. And it seemed, just kind of reiterating the point that she looks for people to control. All these people that she has so-called friends with, they are younger than she is, or they have gone through some sort of difficulty in their relationship with their family, like these people that she's met in Seattle, the people that she is, the children that she interacts with. And I also wonder, too, if there is, her liking does she get on, is there like some sort of, I don't want to say psychological, but there, the way she seems like she interacts better with people who are not mature. These people, lack certain things, lack certain knowledge and whatnot, and definitely there's a control aspect there, but is there something else going on with that? And I just think it was, very cruel, and I guess, this is a system of white supremacy racism that we're in, talking about how Steve's family, I think it was his mom, had gotten the outfit for the daughter, and the daughter really liked it, wore it multiple days, and when the mother comes, she tells her she's fat, and just crushes that girl. But you see that. If they're going to say that to white children, how much worse is it for non-white children? I guess we see that, or hear that discussed on the compensatory call-in every week. And that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Let's see. The word count update for Mr. Douglas. The word perfect is in the book 60 times. More than double the count for the term rape, which is in the book 29 times, all of which still pales in comparison to love, a whopping 300 entries. Beautiful is in the book 37 times. I suspect all of them in reference to Mary Kay. I guess we'll keep an eye out. Is anyone other than Mary Kay or someone blonde and white described as beautiful? Anywho, let's see. Anybody else hand up that had commentary that we missed?
Can I be heard?
Retired firefighter in Florida. Yes, sir.
Greetings, everyone. I finally caught up. Number one, I wrote down that I'm tired of the white and perfect description of the sex offender and her husband. As everybody has been saying, that has been induced into the book a multiple amount of times, and I'm thinking it has to be some sort of reasoning that we will find out later on why he is doing that. I'm talking about the author. A person who routinely is being late could be classified as a very selfish person. That came across my thoughts after hearing it over and over again. It's almost like it's a compliment. You know, he's reporting it so much. And most other people that I know who have that type of habit, people look down on them or criticize them, or they get in trouble on their job by being routinely late like that, especially the ones that I've worked on. A black male teacher should be very careful of touching students and fellow employees. I have no hugging, especially maybe handshakes with some of the people of both parties, students as well as employees. I'm just responding to what was being read about hugging people and whatnot, that sort of thing, as a teacher. It goes over Boeing. I've heard that for a second time. And I think Boeing the home place for Boeing Aircraft Company is the city of Seattle. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And I mean, they produce military and commercial aircraft for almost 100 years. I could be wrong. Mary Kay used all of her manipulative, influential ways to seduce her victim. That's what it's leading up to in this book by the author. Keep going over and over how manipulative she is. Steve and Mary Kay always put on a false front. I have down here, you know, apparently in front of others, that sort of thing, as though they're the model couple in family, that sort of thing. Matter of fact, Mary Kay came from that type of falsehood. What I have down here. I wonder if female teachers, I was just thinking, I wonder if female teachers who are mothers, does that combination work well with you know, sitting around with children for 8-9 hours and in the late evening, in some cases, have to become a mother, with your own children. I think at best it would be kind of difficult. I could be wrong. I'm not a mother, of course. Just a thought. It's the second time I've heard about the comparison with the Kennedys. And I have down here whose family background was tragic. 3 brothers killed. One brother political career was ruined because of the death of a date that he had, although he was married. A special needs sister who the father ordered to have her with some serious brain surgery. And another sister was killed in an airplane crash. I think it was an airplane crash. It was either airplane crash or some other type of crash. So I mean, I don't understand it. But it did also influence a lot of black people also during that time of the one brother getting assassinated as the president of the United States. Steve is what is called henpecked. And the grandmother is like a lot of grandmothers that I've experienced is quite clear on it and don't care about what anybody thinks about her opinion. And last but not least, favoring children in your class, I would figure is a big no-no. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Much obliged. Retired firefighter in Florida, also noting the so-called perfection and even questioning why is the author Gregg Olsen, why does he continue to remind us readers, why does he continue to insist, hey, perfect. Generally, they do the exact opposite, talking about not. If they were talking about Al Sharpton or somebody that, Al was no angel. I could not imagine them going, things seem perfect. Things seem like, really? So, like, all America. I said that was another one I have to look to see how many times that is in the text as well. Absolutely, if you are a black educator, all that fondling. Matter of fact, before I forget, speaking of fondling, previous caller had mentioned Mr. Douglas. It was Dr. Antoine D. Tomlin was a guest on the program the day after Christmas 2022, 3 years ago. We discussed his dissertation, When They See Us, Narratives of Black Male Teachers, and specifically Dr. Tomlin shared that he excluded commentary from half of the black male participants he interviewed who relayed experiences of being sexually harassed by female staff members. I think he had females who were on the board for his dissertation, and they told him, can't include everything. Half of the participants said this was a problem. Can't include everything. I said, how many Mary Kays do we think are out there? Let's see. Anything I get in before get to audio segment 2? Let me see. Classroom 39 was never neat. Never. Like not even the first day of, the quarter, semester, whatever. When they were talking about the decorations in the classroom, they said they had Seahawks colors in the classroom, which I've seen a lot of that over my years here. They said the gridiron theme was the legacy of a previous teacher from days when teachers were able to give rooms a personal touch. Now, this book is some years old. Oh, my God. Like 2025. I don't know if you can put NFL paraphernalia up in a public school classroom or not. But anything beyond that, you're about to get DEI'd on out of here. It better not be no personal Nothing. Remember, I think the teacher got in trouble. She said, all students are welcome here. And they said, you better take that down. we don't do it that personal. She said, well, are we saying that not all students are welcome? We'll get to that later, but you take that all students welcome here, you take that down right now. Dang, okay. Let's see. September of 1995, what everybody was paying attention to is Orenthal James going to prison. Let's see. When the grandmother talks about Steve, again, this book on the sneak, all the folks who say the system of white supremacy, hey, we got all this white male patriarchy and it is the man, even with Nadine. Matter of fact, you got multiple generations and multiple families worth with Mary Kay, Grandma Nadine, what we heard about Mary Schmitz and the control that she had in the household, maybe even getting rid of her husband's the children from her husband John's extramarital affairs, putting them in an orphanage. The system of white supremacy racism as a matriarchy. Who wears the pants on the plantation? Mother Superior. This might be a book to submit. Maybe we can think about that as we read the rest of it. Get in more thoughts as we proceed. Audio segment 2. I guess we can be thinking, so is this book relevant for black people? If you're black and you don't live near Washington State, why is this book worth your time and energy in a system of white supremacy racism? Learning about blonde all-American Mary Kay. Audio segment number 2, Katherine Massey Book Club, If Loving You is Wrong.
Chapter 23. The leaves dropped into a heavy pile along 35th Avenue Southwest when parent-teacher conferences rolled around in early November 1995. Judy and Lee Hogden had looked forward to the meeting with Katie's teacher. By then, Mary Letourneau's phone calls had become frequent, and the Hogdens knew that the teacher viewed their daughter as special. They arrived at Shorewood Elementary a few minutes early for their 5:30 appointment, the last one of the day. They had been told the conference would last about 15 minutes, maybe half an hour. More than 2 hours passed. 2 hours of hearing a teacher praise their daughter's brilliance, talent, and friendship. She just sat there and talked about Katie, her writing, her future, how much they had in common. Time just went by. Lee and I looked at the clock, Judy remembered. We left Katie home alone, and I'm sure she's wondering where we are, Lee said. Mary, I'm sure you need to get home. Mary Kay was in no hurry. It was clear that despite 4 children and a husband at home, she'd rather be sitting there with the Hogdens than anywhere else. Oh, no, that's okay, the teacher said. If I wasn't here, I'd have to be at a 6th graders' teachers' meeting. I'd much rather talk to you than the other 6th grade teachers. The teacher went on for a while longer, and the Hogdens thanked her for all they had done for Katie. Their daughter was waiting at home. So were Mary Kay's children. Judy Hogden was a sensible, well-read woman who, along with her husband Lee, had long known that their daughter was born an adult. She was a girl who had no trouble talking eye to eye with older people. Katie once teasingly told her mother that she felt like she had to read 17 to learn how to act like the typical teen. She just didn't relate as easily to kids her own age, though no one would have said she was a nerd or a recluse. The phone always rang in their house, and Katie was usually the one to get on the line. As Mary Letourneau's phone calls increased over the school year, the thought did cross Judy's mind that it was a little out of the ordinary. It didn't alarm her in any way. It just made an impression that the teacher had found something special in her daughter, and both were benefiting from the mentoring. I knew she was a lot older, but she always struck me as the big sister Katie never had. I never felt the age thing was odd. I did wonder how a mother of 4 had so much time to spend on the phone with her students. Mary always struck me as young and fun-loving. It was great that she was young and loved the 6th graders, Judy said. The lights in room 39 were almost always the last ones to dim at Shorewood Elementary. For a time, Some wondered if Mary Letourneau was so disorganized that she couldn't get her work done in the manner of most other elementary school teachers. It was true that there was never enough planning and correcting time, but 10 p.m.? Others who knew her better thought disorganization could be a factor, but also weighed the idea that Mary just didn't want to go home. Maybe she didn't have much reason to go. Her marriage was in deep trouble, and she frequently hinted at that. At one point, 3 teachers cornered Mary Kay to tell her that she shouldn't be so vocal about her problems with Steve. They understood she wasn't happy and didn't want to go home. But why didn't she want to get home to her children? What was so terrible about home that kept her from her own babies? She called on Katie Hogden a number of times to bail her out of her mental disarray. "Katie, please, let me go photocopy this. Fax that, please." Katie was happy to help. She'd sit at Mrs. Letourneau's desk for hours, using the answer key and marking paper after paper while Mary ran off to take care of an errand. She always had a gazillion things to do, Katie said later. At the end of the day, when darkness fell, Katie would help her teacher load up her bags with projects and papers that would never get finished. She'd carry them back and forth each day, unloading and reloading. Blanketing her desk in an avalanche of paperwork, she always said she was going to get it done that night. But there was always more to do. The distractions of daily life piled up and in time would bury her. Danelle Johnson was a magna cum laude graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. She'd had it rougher than most, but pulled herself up from the abyss of living on welfare to cleaning toilets to a job with her own office at a community college. Her laugh was always ready, masking the realities of a life that sometimes seemed too hard or just plain unfair. Her voice was deep, the result of cigarettes, and the decibel level sometimes required of a mother of 6. At 46, Danelle Johnson was doing the best that a single mother could. She had a good job, a nice house. Food stamps and welfare were a distant, but never fully forgotten, memory. Her youngest were boy-girl twins, Drew and Molly, 2 sandy-haired kids with the push-me-pull-me relationship typical of brothers or sisters of similar age. They hated each other. They loved each other. They were close. They couldn't stand the sight of the other. They were Shorewood elementary students from kindergarten to 6th grade, and they struggled every step of the way, forcing their mother to make herself known at the school office whenever the twins were having difficulty. "I was famous at Shorewood," Danelle said later. "All I had to do was call down there and say, 'This is Danelle,' and they knew exactly who I was and why I was calling." Danelle's job of nearly 2 decades had provided stability for her children, allowing them to start and finish in the same school, a not-so-common feat in a district that draws from apartments and projects of the poor. And even though Danelle and her own grown children formed an extended family, the focus on the school remained paramount. School, she hoped, would be their chance to do something better, as it had been for her when she hit rock bottom. Their lives revolved around Shorewood. "That's why what happened is so sad and disgusting," Danelle would say later. When 6th grade came in the 1995-96 school year, daughter Molly was enrolled in Mrs. Letourneau's class, and her twin brother, Drew, was assigned to a teacher across the hall. Drew's best friend was Vili Fualaau. For a time, everything looked all right. Danelle Johnson hoped against hope that her children would get through 6th grade with enough knowledge to make the transition to junior high. When Danelle showed up for her son's and daughter's parent-teacher conferences in November, she was looking forward to talking with Mrs. Letourneau. Molly thought so highly of her teacher, but her grades were still below average, and Danelle considered school more than a popularity contest. Mrs. Letourneau was rushed. She barely had 5 minutes to discuss her troubled student. She told Danelle that she needed to get more involved with her daughter's homework. She wasn't encouraging, and she didn't seem particularly interested in talking about Molly at all. Danelle was mystified. The woman she had seen around school in the past was outgoing, friendly, and perky, and above all, interested in connecting with parents and students. This lady wasn't interested in that at all. At least not on that day. "She seemed a little strange," she said later. Chapter 24. At 38, Suna Fualaau had plenty of problems. With an ex-husband in prison and bills and eviction notices in the mail, the heavy-set woman with long black hair streaked in gray lived stoically in a burdensome world. She'd worked dead-end jobs at everything from taking orders at a Taco Bell to cashiering at the Roxbury Texaco. But she wasn't alone. The school was a valued link in her life on the level of the church, where her father was a founding member, and she, naturally, was a devoted part of the Samoan congregation. When the Fualaau house caught on fire, it was Shorewood teachers and students who collected clothing to get the family of 5 going again. Suna was poor, but her sons and daughter could transcend all of that because they were stellar in different ways. The teachers at Shorewood saw their potential very clearly. Every single child in that family had promise, were gifted in one area. Vili's was his art, Perry with his voice, Laney was the athlete, Fave was a mathematician, said one teacher. As is often the case in places like White Center, when personal ambition does not exist and parental support is not there, promises go unfulfilled. Though Laney, the sole daughter of the family, did earn an athletic scholarship, she didn't make it to college. Vili was Suna's last chance, and teachers at Shorewood knew that if he could develop his talent, he'd have something to hold on to. He had the opportunity to develop a passion and a talent that would carry him through high school. Every teacher tried to help him out and be a mentor. It wasn't just Mary who recognized the artistic ability in him and was trying to look outside to try to find help. She might have been the most successful at doing that because she drove him to his art class, said one who knew the situation well. As early as first grade and certainly by second grade, Vili Fualaau was seen as a child with undeniable artistic talent. One teacher saw it then and inquired at the YMCA to see if they could help an underprivileged kid. He could benefit from extra attention in an area in which he clearly excelled. If you could see his work in first grade, it is about like it is now. It was that unbelievable, a teacher said. Whether Vili Fualaau was the second coming of Picasso or not was a topic of debate. Some considered the boy's artwork provocative and developed beyond his years. Mary Letourneau would nearly bring herself to tears as she thought of Vili's creative genius. Others didn't see it that way at all. They saw his creations as no better or worse than the high school artist who later pumped gas for a living and painted houses on the side. But to Katie Hogden, her friend's talent was without limit. She noticed it in 4th grade, and 2 years later it was even more clear to her. Mary Letourneau had seen it 2 years before Katie, when she taught him in 2nd grade. With her love of art and the creative process, Mary had found her perfect student. Certainly there were reading, writing, and math lessons, but it seemed to some observers that time in Mary Letourneau's room was filled with mask-making, drawing, and painting. When one volunteer parent brought in copies of Monet's Water Lily series, it was Vili who created the most stunning replica. It was amazing to watch him draw, Katie said later. It was like he took a picture with his eyes and copied it. The only thing Vili seemed to have trouble with was self-portraiture. Though he captured much of his physical appearance, his eyes, his mouth, Vili always made his nose 2 sizes too small, a kind of Michael Jackson makeover that Katie found both amusing and touching. She teased him in the way sisters or very good friends often do. "You're Samoan," she said. "You can't help your nose. It adds character to you." Vili would laugh and tease her right back, telling her she was a roly-poly. "We both knew the other didn't mean it," she said later. Of course, later, media appearances would prove that Vili Fualaau was more a typical teenager than a great intellectual, as Mary and the lawyers would eventually proclaim to the world. Teachers at Shorewood didn't know what Mary was talking about when she carried on about the intelligence and maturity of the boy. They never thought Vili was any more grown-up than other 6th or 7th graders. "He was a boy. He looked like a boy," said one teacher. And if Vili wasn't all that Mary made him out to be, though he might have thought so, he certainly had his following within the classrooms of Shorewood Elementary. Said one who knew him at the time, everyone knew him. Not everyone liked him. Yet when the yearbooks were distributed at the end of the year, no one would have a longer line for signatures than Vili. There was another side to 12-year-old Vili. Said one close friend, "I never knew quite what was going on with him either. He has 2 very distinct personalities, and they are completely different from each other. One side you know everything about him, and the other side you don't know anything about him." One side was Vili, The other had the nickname Buddha. Katie Hogden saw through it. "He has one side," she said. "I'm a little thug. I'm a gangster. I'm hard. I know how to take care of myself." And he'll talk to you for 5 minutes, and he'll pick the personality you like best about him, and he'll stick to that personality just to impress you, to make that imprint in your mind that you'll remember him now. That Vili was the manipulator. He'll pay attention to the expression on your face when he starts his personality. I know he uses it for inspiration. The reason we were friends was because I saw right through him. Don't play these games. I know you're not like this, she thought. Katie felt sorry for the Vili that Mary Letourneau would later say she fell in love with, the artist. The side where he knew what he wants out of life, but he's kind of scared to let it happen because he thought with his family, his money situation, he'd never get to have it come true anyway. He didn't share that with a lot of people. Vili could charm and cajole to get what he wanted. "New shoes," he called out to Katie Hogden one morning, when she walked in wearing a pair of Nikes right out of the box. "You can't have them," she shot back. But Vili didn't give up. He told her how much he wanted a new pair of shoes, but his mom didn't have enough money to buy them for him. Katie felt sorry for him. Vili must have seen it, because he continued to press the point in a niggling way that elicited more sympathy than annoyance. "I traded him for his sister's champions that were too small for him so he could have my designer Nike shoes," Katie said later. "One day, I just took them off and gave them to him. He was so happy, just thrilled." For those who knew Vili, it was plain that no matter what had gone on in his life, no matter what troubles his mother and sister and brothers had endured, and the list was long, nothing hurt like the subject of his father, a convict named Vili Fualaau. Most who knew Vili considered Vili Fualaau, a former auto mechanic, preacher, and purported father of 18, off limits. If Vili wanted to talk about him, fine, but smarter kids knew never to bring his name up first. The fact that his father was in prison, and the reason for it, worried the 12-year-old, who hadn't seen much of his father since he was 2. Vili had assaulted his wife, and later another woman. Vili would sometimes describe some of the attacks against his mother when they lived in Hawaii. Violence scared him. Katie remembered some time later, he just wanted to make sure that his family was not going to end up like his father ended up. He never looked down on his mom for that. I don't think he ever did. He had a lot of hate in his heart for his dad. A lot. Chapter 25. Though she didn't bring up her family often, kids from the class knew that Mrs. Letourneau had grown up in a sunny world far from White Center. "She was brought up to be Miss Prissy, Miss Perfect," said one student who remembered the teacher talking about her past. Kids from the round table also knew her father was somehow involved in government affairs, maybe a senator or something. Mary Kay told the group that she adored her father, but she never agreed with any of his morals, Katie Hogden recalled later. Mary's mother was another matter. "My mom gave birth to me, and she raised my brothers and sisters, but it was never anything more than that," she told Katie, who asked about her mother a number of times. After a while she stopped asking. She wished Mary had a close relationship with her mom, like she did with hers. Mary's children were occasional visitors to her schoolroom throughout her teaching career at Shorewood, although Mary professed great love for her children, and Katie Hogden, for one, never doubted it. There was something different about their relationship. It was not the same as how Mary treated the kids of the round table. Katie wondered about that later. I know she loved her kids, just like she loved every single kid in that whole entire class, but I don't know if they had a strong bond with their mom. I don't know if they felt as close to her as she felt to them, she said. Katie remembered meeting Stephen Letourneau for the first time. Though he was just a year younger, he wasn't connected to his mother like so many others in the class were. He just looked at her like a mom, like, "This is my mom." It wasn't like a friendship thing. "This is my mom. She loves me and takes care of me, but there isn't a strong friendship." Katie's mother, Judy, mulled it over. She felt closer to her students than her own children. God knows she spent more time with them. Calls or visits from her husband to Shorewood Elementary during that time frequently meant tears and a knotted stomach for Mary Letourneau. Often she'd just let Steve wait on the phone whenever the office secretary announced a call over the classroom intercom. It was like, "I'll talk to you when I damn well please," said a friend from the school. The kids could see the stress, and at times members of the roundtable group were sought for comfort. From what Katie could see, and what little Mary had told her, the Letourneau marriage was failing. Katie remembered one time when Steve came to school and started yelling at Mary in the hallway in front of the classroom. Mary just stood there. When it was over, she reached out for her student. "I just need a hug," she said. "I'm having a really hard time." Katie hugged her tightly. "Yeah, you are," the student said. Nothing more was said about what happened in the hallway that day. Nothing needed to be said. Whatever it was, it most likely had been Steve's fault. Students in Mrs. Letourneau's class loved her. Steve Letourneau was a man who lived with their teacher. It was true he was her husband, and she lived with him, but she didn't have much to do with the man. Steve was all wrong for his wife anyway. Steve didn't match Mary Letourneau at all, Katie said later. His personality, from what I could see, was completely different from hers. I can understand why she wasn't happy with him. It wasn't a meant-to-be situation. I think she tried to build on it, but it ended up not working. Steve didn't make a good impression on his wife's class. "He always seemed rude to me," Katie said later. "He wasn't welcoming to our class. He'd bring Jackie in. 'Hi, class.' No hug for Mary. 'Just come out in the hall because I need to talk to you.' He didn't seem like he was very friendly." Mary Kay Letourneau was coming undone. Most considered it the result of a faltering marriage made worse by stress and money matters. Or it could have been that she had too many children to mother. She was on overload all the time. She looked wan. Things weren't getting better. But how much worse could they get? Mary Kay suffered her third miscarriage, though many didn't know until later that she and Steve had, in fact, been expecting a fifth child. Mary Kay's reaction to losing the baby was peculiar to the Shorewood teacher who had known her for more than 4 years. The miscarriage had not brought tears or even much concern. "It's for the best," Mary Kay said, seemingly detached from what she had been through a few days before. "I'm not staying with Steve anyway." The comment struck the colleague, not because she was going to leave Steve Letourneau, but because having babies was so much a part of Mary Kay and her core values. Teaching art and having babies were the world to her. Former Shorewood principal Patricia Watson was very concerned the last time she saw Mary Kay and her children. During a visit to her old school, Patricia saw the Letourneaus in the parking lot behind the school. Their windshield was cracked, and the windows couldn't be raised or lowered. Mary Kay looked disheveled, far from the impeccably neat woman she'd always been. Her children didn't look quite right either. They weren't scrubbed, and Mary Claire wasn't wearing any shoes. All of them were less well kept, she said, unkempt even. My goodness sakes, she thought, something has gone awry here. Chapter 26. In the spring of 1996, Mary Kay Letourneau told neighbor and teacher Ellen Douglas that she was planning on taking art courses at nearby Highline Community College in order to earn credits necessary to keep her teaching certificate current. Ellen thought it was a good idea, a necessary plan. Mary Kay had often delayed getting the credits, and it had reached do-or-die time. If she didn't get them that summer, there was a good chance her teaching certificate would be in jeopardy. It surprised Ellen when Mary Kay said she was thinking about spending the summer with her folks back in D.C. instead. Her mother said she'd pay for her to pick up the classes after the summer. It seemed reckless. I kept thinking in my own mind, there are so many classes they offer, and you have to take however many to get the right number of credits. Logistically, you don't have a good record for making it. You'll lose your license if you don't get them now. Mary Kay gave in to reason and stayed with her schedule at the community college. She had another motive for it anyway. She was going to mentor Vili Fualaau by taking some art classes with him. She had even arranged for a $200 grant for a child at risk. Besides, he needed a way to get there, and she would drive. The summer of 1996 was unsettling for the neighborhood kids, where at one time the Letourneau household was one that invited children with a Kool-Aid mom and all the things that went with that. It was decidedly different with Vili and his older brother Perry over there all the time. Vili, in fact, the Letourneau kids said, spent the night frequently. It was a holdover from the final part of the school year when student and teacher burned the midnight oil getting the 6th grade yearbook ready for the copy center. Ellen Douglas's 10-year-old daughter, Jennifer, came home upset one afternoon and told her mother that she didn't like Mary Claire's babysitter, Vili Fualaau. Mary Kay was letting the teenager drink beer and smoke in the house. Schoolteacher Ellen gave her head a shake. She knew the Fualaau boys were hanging around, but smoking and drinking? It just didn't sound like Mary Kay at all. The next time she had the opportunity to bring it up, she asked her friend about it. "Well," Mary Kay explained, shrugging it off, "it's so nice that he's doing me a favor that I don't want to say anything about it." Mary Kay and the Fish twins from the Kent condominium renewed their friendship and talked on the phone more than they had in the past year. Topics always ricocheted with Mary Kay. "What did you have for dinner?" would turn into what she had for dinner 3 weeks ago and every day since. But one subject all enjoyed discussing was the world of art. Mary Kay was especially pleased that both Amber and Angie had enrolled in the Seattle Art Institute. Amber was majoring in music and promotion, and Angie was aiming for a career in video film editing. Mary Kay recalled the fantastic job the girls had done on their high school video yearbook. She had spotted their talent back then, and she told them she had a new protege of sorts. "Yeah," she said, "I have this friend from school that I'd like to get into the Art Institute or Cornish." She went on to explain how talented her friend was, and how she was even taking art classes with him at Highline Community College and at Daniel Smith, a Seattle art store, to support his dreams. The future for the student friend was unlimited. Amber and Angie talked about it later. They were amazed by Mary Kay's dedication. "I knew she didn't have enough time for her family and school, and here she was taking classes with this student," Angie said. What kind of teacher goes to classes with her student? Angie later remembered calling Mary Kay in July 1996 to arrange for a visit. "We wanted to see them. It was almost an excitement when she would hear from us. 'Oh, hello, we want to see you.' It was a thrill for us because we loved the family. I would usually make Amber call. I hated calling because I didn't want to get stuck on the phone with her for an hour. She just wouldn't shut up. She'd talk about everything and anything." The girls took Stephen, 11, Mary Claire, 9, and Nikki, almost 5, to the Burien Baskin-Robbins for ice cream. They left toddler Jackie with her mother at home. It was a good time, like the old times. Mary Claire chattered on about anything and everything, and Stephen was excited about Amber's new Ford Escort. He was just getting into music, and he really liked the new stereo, Amber recalled. The following month, Mary Kay called and arranged for her 2 youngest children to be babysat by Amber and Angie at Carriage Row. As the twins entertained the children, they asked what their parents had been up to. "Daddy doesn't like the brown boy who smokes," Nikki said. "Mommy and Daddy fight about the brown boy." Amber and Angie didn't know what to make of the remark. They asked if the brown boy was their regular babysitter. Nikki said no. "Why are they fighting?" The little boy said he didn't know, and the girls just dropped it.
Well, I was getting my highlighter. I was highlighting. Well, we had commentary after the first audio section concluded, saying, hey, Mr. Olsen is creative about not identifying these as non-white people. Well, and even these is all quotes here. The brown boy. What's the problem? Daddy doesn't like the brown boy. I would have, man, real talk, I would have liked that. That would have been a better title than If Loving You Is Wrong. That's kind of tacky because they got all other. Mommy and Daddy fight about the brown boy. Nigga. Best title in the world. Best at Mary Kay Letourneau. Child raping in Washington State. Come on. Come on. Put Vili on. Come on. I think the caller from last week, she says she saw the image of Mary Kay like looking over her shoulder at Mommy and Daddy fight about the... I can't do it. Best title ever. They should have, come on. They should have got me to come do the If Loving You Is Right. We miss you, Luther. That's a great song, but come on. Come on. Mommy and Daddy fight about the brown. They're not even talking about Vili. They're not even talking about Vili. Woo, man. That's Katherine Massey booklet. And again, hey. What does, because they didn't say mommy and daddy fight about the black boy. What is the benefit for people classified as black, born in the U.S. and or beyond? Why is this book important to us? Should we be reading this? Have we wasted 3 weeks? Number to dial, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Mommy and Daddy fight about the brown boy. I love it. That is the great. They should have titled the book that. They should have titled the email untiljustice@gmail.com. Email number 1, then we'll get to callers too. Greetings, Gus and callers. I took a look at All American Girl. That's the audio movie I started with today from 2000. Having read the first part of this text and getting a more accurate picture of the Letourneau affair, I found the movie so abhorrent in its depiction of Vili as the lecherous pursuer and in the attempt to portray the pedophile Mary Kay as a victim that I had to shut it off. I'll try to finish it after taking a break. Even the title of the movie is vile. How many times is the word love in this text? 300 times. Chapter 17. Identical twins Amber and Angie Fish, the dark-haired, dark-eyed, look alikes. What is their racial classification? I thought they were white. I haven't seen any pictures in this book, but I thought they were classified as white. I could be in error. Others can share. 2. Amber Fish recalled some years later, I always thought she was really young in how she looked and acted. She always made us feel older when we talked to her. She respected us. She talked to us all the time. We always felt like we were on real communicative level with her, sharpening her grooming skills on the children, perhaps. 3. When Mary Kay needed help grading papers, she sometimes turned to her neighbor girls, and the 3 would be up until 2 a.m. carefully reviewing. Are you kidding me? If the school administration knew of this, she should have been fired. White people don't get it. Chapter 18. Mary Kay and Steve Letourneau and their children were nothing short of a beautiful family, all golden. Amber Fish defended Mary Kay later when people questioned her parenting skills. I think she was an awesome mother, but as far as running the house, it was really hectic. The power of being white and blonde. You don't even have to be for real blonde. 2. But more than anything, the biggest factor in their lives was their inability to make it anywhere on time. Made me think of that old derogatory trope about black people, CP time. 3. Often the twins would get an urgent call asking them to hurry over to help get the Letourneaus out of the door for church or a party or a family gathering at Grandma Nadine's in Seattle. It's 253. Seattle. That's not King County. That's Pierce County. Where were these girls' mother in all of this? ? Were these twins their little slaves? They got paid sometimes, and they liked being around the perfect all-American family. 4. Mary Kay was a woman who wanted a lot from the world, a woman who required a lot of life, yet there she was, trapped in a dull, mundane existence in a crummy condo in Kent, Washington, with a husband she didn't really love. I have no particular talent. I'm not a competent wife, mother, or teacher, but I am a white blonde royalty, and of course, I deserve better. And I mean, really? Trapped in a crummy condo in Kent? Like, it's a lot of places you could be in life. You're in a condo in Kent, Washington, not even 15 minutes from Seattle. What is the problem? You'd have to break it down to me. Like, what? What is, what? And you go out and overspend all the time. Like, anyway. 19. White Center name is a big joke among Seattleites who don't live there. Toss a rock, they say, and you couldn't hit a white person if your life depended on it. Racist joke for sure. 2. White Center's name is a joke. Its nickname is worse. The slogan the Chamber of Commerce would like to forget is Rat City. They have it on billboards in White Center and such, too. It is Seattle's version of the hood. I disagree. Rap and hip-hop pulse in the headsets and from I'm going to just submit that this is a whole racist section here as someone who has been in White Center many, many, many times. Like, WTH. Studies show that 70% of consumers of rap and hip-hop are classified as white, and many of them live in Seattle proper. 3. This is the land that time forgot. They are living within minutes of one of the most vital, exciting cities in the country, if not the world, and yet they may never, ever come here. That's another one I said. Act of racism, I suspect. Could it be that they know race soldiers will just use their nigger knocker on them if they dare venture into the white part of town? I mean, it's a lot of white people in White Center. And again, now, White Center is a scooter ride. You could walk from White Center to Seattle. 5. Politicians don't care about the communities and they don't care about kids, particularly when it comes to non-white children. 5. Seattle and Tacoma directly in its flight path. It's a disaster. Noise that teachers have to stop lessons to wait for passing planes. Families have turned up the volume on their televisions to ear-splitting decibels. C.O.W.S book club, A Terrible Thing to Waste, Environmental Racism and Its Assault on the American Mind. Let's see. 6. Letourneau did a reverse commute. She came from outside the community to teach second grade in a room 20 at Shorewood Elementary. She was admired and loved by nearly everyone in those early years. There wasn't a parent who didn't want their child in her class. As non-white victims, we are easily fooled, manipulated by the seemingly nice treatment by race soldiers, myself included. Is that why she did the reverse commute? Chapter 20. The Douglas home was on a stunning piece of view property once owned by Ellen's grandmother. Generational wealth is reserved for white people. Actually, we have so many programs talking about this. People mentioned it after the first audio segment where they get all this help from grandma and Steve's parents and all that. That is such a staple for people classified as white, even for many white people who are not Bill Gates or Elon Musk, but still. In fact, it's whole books written about this. The racial wealth gap. Betsy Leandar Wright, admitted racist. She was a guest on our program way back in 2009, and we've had many white people who've written about this, talked about this for years. And it happens in so many ways. Inheritance. White parents pay for the down payment, or they might even just give you a house, car, all of this just massive. You get married and they might pay the whole wedding and just all of this welfare and mooching that white people have access to. And again, this is widespread. People who are classified as white get all of this help from their parents and grandparents and uncles and blah, 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 and sometimes total white strangers that non-white people don't have. Nothing like that at all. Deliberate. And even Calvin Schermerhorn's book we talked about, and white people had deliberately set up a system to make sure Black people don't have anything like that at all. You down and out on your luck and you call somebody, brother, sister, I'm down and out on my luck too. That's the way we want the plantation to be. Let's see. 2, brand name status, soaked lifestyle, money troubles, Internal Revenue Service over some back taxes that they owe. That one kind of staggered me. The IRS, like, whoa. They got whole reports and books about how the IRS, they come after Wesley Snipes. Give me that. Give it here. Ah. Stealing it. Give it here. They come after the Negro. Mary Kay and them all this. Well, we'll get to that later. Where is Wesley? Get him. Give me that money. Ronald Isley, get over here. What are you? Give me that. Chapter 21. Steve and Mary Kay. Marriage was a gorgeous package with nothing inside. He was the square-jawed Dudley Do-Right, all blonde and broad shoulders. Mary even called him Dudley Do-Right. Dudley Do-Right was a blonde idiot TV cartoon character during the 1960s. I'm going to say it one more time. Matriarchy, the system of white supremacy. Who is in charge? They said Hillary Clinton was way smarter than Bill Clinton. Number 2. Her way or no way. Most saw it as a sign of perfectionism. With Mary Kay, nothing was ever good enough. There's an interesting interview with Mary Kay and Vili, 2018, on Australian TV, when she gets angry with Vili and keeps saying, "Who's the boss? Who's the boss?" I thought it was a very revealing interview regarding her psychopathology. See YouTube True Crime KBZ, Mary Kay Letourneau versus Vili Fualaau, Who's in Charge? This is a short segment of a much longer interview. Chapter 22, so steep are the yards that sometimes homeowners hitch a rope to their mowers to drop them down and reel them up. No person could walk the edge. I found this fascinating. I assume that this is a white area where the homeowners so bent on living in a racially restricted area that they were willing to put up with this inconvenience. Seattle does have a lot of hills, and I mean a lot of hills. So there are a number of residential properties that are on inclines where you might have to mow on a hill. Capitol Hill, Queen Anne is another hill. They just have endless hills in Seattle. 2. In the 1995-96 school year, they had to deal with O.J. and the Million Man March. And that's election year 96 too. And the Olympic bombing, like, woo. And OKC, Tim McVeigh, like, woo. What a time to be a student. Mary Kay had a table set up where a group of kids could sit and work together and talk about O.J. Simpson. The kids at the round table were an exclusive lot. They were the chosen. Mary Kay had a warm word for all the children in class, but Vili Fualaau, Katie Hodgson, and one of Vili's cousins, Tony, were a little bit more special. This does not seem like a teaching method that will produce justice. How about giving the most help to those who need the most constructive help? Almost seems like we get K-Dot one more time. They not like us. See, we had the round table, and had to go. She Lauren, she said, "Hey, everybody get the cheese quesadillas. I can't get no." Mary Claire, that's what. She not like us. We get the cheese quesadilla. Tubby, get over it. They keep saying that Mary Kay is a great mom and a great teacher. Like, you should be disqualified from all that if you rape children, by the way, but whatever. Really? For real? What's the qualifications for being a great mom? Like, you have to it had to be way more than I eat a lot of Costco cheddar cheese. It would have to be way more than that. Number is 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Let's see. Folks who dialed in, hand up if you didn't get to share. Don't wait till the last minute. Hand up now. Everyone with a hand up. Lauren Z's mom, retired firefighter, Mr. Douglas, all with us. Proceed.
Greetings again. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I'm defining Mary Kay as, in this particular portion of reading, as very weird. Her manipulative, and she's also a manipulative expert at manipulating people. She also has tricks for children's parents, by the parents being in a meeting with her, and what she does in order to gather their attention is by keep complimenting the child. I would advise, any parent that comes in on a meeting with the teacher that they have questions. They write, even if you have to write them down, questions that you need to ask the teacher about the performance of the child in the classroom, academic as well as behavior. But write it down. Have questions that would help you avoid people like Mary Kay. And she sounds, of course, she sounds like a person that's dire in need of mental health help. I have here, although Billy is classified, I would guess as a Pacific Islander. He could resemble a black male when I was his age. Maybe one of the parents would have been a white person, that sort of thing. I saw a picture of him, and he looks like somebody that I grew up with. And Pacific Islander, I don't think it has been a long-term racial classification. I could be wrong about that. The author is at fault. It's becoming very consistent for me. He's at fault at describing this tragedy between this child and this adult as a love affair. That's what it's coming down to in my estimation from listening to the readings. Similar to, and we all know, Tom Jefferson and his slave, which was a black female, the raping racist senator. We read that book also. And on top of it, he was a hypocrite, hiding his ratchet sexual life. The author is providing Mary Kay with an excuse to be a two-time rapist, child molester, and his practice is not new. This is a standard lying description of the behavior of a lot of white women. They get protected. They get protected about the incorrect, unjust things that they do by other white people. This evil woman is making her plans. This is another thing that I picked up from the past reading. She's already making plans for this boy by scheduling herself in the same art class. It's disgusting. She took advantage of a very vulnerable care group, single, non-white mom with multiple children. Description is very vulnerable situation. Last but not least, the victim could only be rated as a sex toy machine when it comes down to it. Somebody that she can easily influence. Everything is all right, because of the difference in age and experience, and as manipulative she is, and he, basically became a sex toy. And that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening.
Much obliged, retired firefighter in Florida. Important point about Mary Kay the grooming process, including, hey, you're so intelligent and talented. You got so much skill with your art. Let's take a class together. She can spend even more time. Yes, get you in my clutches. Yeah, and everybody, this becomes just normal. Oh, they took a class together, and see, we're around other people there. So it's he's with Mary. That's that Mary Kay. Boy, she goes that extra yard. Yes. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up, proceed.
May I be heard?
Lauren, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Well, over the last week, I found an article about Mary Kay Letourneau in the New York Times. I wasn't able to read all the articles they had about her, but I found one that was written after she died, and it was titled, Mary Kay Letourneau, teacher who raped student and then married him, dies at 58. And in this article, it said her father, John Schmitz, was an ultra-conservative U.S. representative who ran for president in 1972 as a member of the American Independent Party. One of her brothers, Joseph E. Schmitz, was the Inspector General of the Department of Defense and executive at Blackwater Worldwide and a one-time foreign policy advisor for President Trump. Another brother, John P. Schmitz, was a deputy counsel to President George H.W. Bush. I didn't know about that stuff. I guess all of it couldn't have been in the book because it was written before Trump was elected and whatnot. But at the end of the article, it said, she was always a really good person, Miss Bremer said. She was always a really good friend. Mr. Fualaau said in the A&E documentary that at the end of the day, it was a real love story. But, he added, a lot of things that should have gone through my mind at the time weren't going through my mind. I just wanted to share that. Earlier in the book, like right before chapter 19, when it said book 2, she was talking about what she did with the students, and she called it HHH. When they were leaving the room, she would give them a hug, a high five, or a handshake. It was their choice. And she said it was a way of touching base, ensuring contact. Those last two words, ensuring contact, I think that was really important. In chapter 22, it said turning north. This is another way the author talks about the area. Turning north on 35th Avenue Southwest from Roxbury is a straight shot from the White Center and the problems that come with that territory. With each block toward the Central Business District, the junction of West Seattle, come better homes, nicer yards, and that elusive pride of ownership. Seems like he's just, I don't know, to him that's where more white people are. When they were describing the classroom that she taught in, and it said the annex was isolated from the rest of the school, and Mary Kay's room was on the westernmost end of the building. 2 50-year-old cedars blocked the view to the courtyard area and the classrooms across the way. The setting suited the teacher's style. And I'm just like, why would that setting suit her style? Like, she's isolated and nobody can see what she's doing? Let's see. All right, I think it was already commented on that they were in that meeting for 2 hours, the parents with Mary Kay Letourneau. That's weird. I thought it was super weird that she's calling these children on the telephone and none of their parents seemed concerned about it. When it first said it, I thought she was calling and talking to the parents. But no, she's calling and talking to these children. That's just so weird. And the mom didn't think it was an issue at all. Katie's mom? Another way the author, okay. It says Danielle's job of nearly 2 decades had provided stability for her children, allowing them to start and finish in the same school, a not-so-common feat in a district that draws from the apartments and projects of the poor. Talking about non-white people again there. As is often the case in places like White Center, when personal ambition does not exist and parental support is not there, promises go unfulfilled. Talking about non-white people right there. Let me see. And they were talking about Vili and how good he was with the art and he was able to copy things. But when he drew a self-portrait, he always made his nose too small. And the author said he called it a kind of Michael Jackson makeover that Katie found both amusing and touching. She teased him in the way that sisters or very good friends often do. You're Samoan, she said. You can't help your nose. It adds character to you. It seems like the author is saying that Vili had maybe a problem with the way his nose looked because it didn't look the way a white person's nose would look. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. But I guess I took it that way because he compared him to Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson had all of those surgeries to make himself look more like a white person. And the author came right out and said it, and this would have been chapter 24. He said that Vili was the manipulator. Like, okay. And then he told the whole story about Vili's friend getting the new shoes, Katie, and then she ends up giving Vili the shoes. And I think the author told that story to make us look at Vili like he was a manipulator, but that's not how I felt at all. I kind of felt sympathy for him because he just wanted a pair of new shoes and he knew his mom couldn't afford them. That's what I thought when I read that. Let me see. There was another one of those segments where Mary Kay Letourneau was talking about her mom, and she said, my mom gave birth to me and she raised my brothers and sisters, but it was never anything more than that, she told Katie, who asked about her mother a number of times. And I was really wondering, like, what's really the difference between the way Mary Schmitz interacted with her offspring and the way Mary Kay Letourneau interacted with hers? Because she does not seem to like that Mary Claire, the first daughter. I think it was inappropriate that she was talking to students about the difficulty she was having with her marriage. And when the former principal, Patricia Watson, she goes back to Shorewood and she sees Mary Kay, and she said the windshield was cracked, the windows couldn't be raised or lowered. Mary Kay looked disheveled, far from the impeccably neat woman she'd always been. Her children didn't look quite right either. They weren't scrubbed. I mean, they were dirty, I guess. And Mary Claire wasn't wearing any shoes. All of them were less well kept, she said, unkempt even. It's like she hesitated to call those children unkempt. Let me see. The art classes, y'all talked about that, but it says she even arranged for a $200 grant for a child at risk. Man, $200 is like one of the smallest grants I have ever heard of, but I don't know, even small amounts will give people assistance. Oh, and the brown boy. Daddy doesn't like the brown boy who smokes, Nikki said. Mommy and Daddy fight about the brown boy. I thought to myself, like, white people are not ignorant about racism. For the children to call him brown means that they recognize that Vili or his brother is not white, and it also indicates that they heard the parents talking about it too. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Much obliged, Lauren. The inflation calculator, $200 in 1996 would be worth $416.41. Springtime 2025. So, You can get a one-way plane ticket someplace. I don't know. Anyway, I will say, with regards to Vili being the manipulator, boy, that really comes through in All American Girl. Woo! You have to watch, or maybe I can slip an audio segment in as we proceed, but wow. You talk about trickster, manipulator, boy. That you got to watch that Vili, boy. You got to watch him. He'll be done took your shoes, took your wife. Like, wee, boy, that Vili, you got to watch him, man. Anyway, other folks who dialed in, if we missed you totally, proceed. Nabbed everybody. We didn't miss anybody. Grand. I'll make sure I get in rest of our email, maybe even a quick thought, and then we can wrap up for this week. More to come from If Loving You Is Wrong. Oh, we didn't. We get Mr. Douglas with us. Sorry, missed you there.
No, that's okay. I was wondering, we have Vili being referenced as a manipulator directly. Is Mary Kay Letourneau referenced as a manipulator directly, saying she is a manipulator? We've gotten it kind of described there, but I don't know if it's been that direct. Just a few things. I saw that the beginning of the second session, we hear the results of her neglect as a teacher. The one student there described as sandy-haired. So I'm assuming that individual is probably white. When the mother goes to the parent-teacher conference there, her daughter is not doing well in school, wants to have the conversation, and Mary Kay Letourneau is rushing right on out of there. I thought it was unprofessional, her having that girl Katie, who is a student, along with these other kids, grading the papers or whatever, grading the assignments, along with the Fish twins. She's the teacher. She should be doing all those kinds of things. And I think that's everything, because everybody else hit up several points that I was going to make. So thank you.
Much obliged, Mr. Douglas. I will get in very briefly. Number one, the Baskins and Robbins that was mentioned in Burien. I've passed that place like a bazillion times. Generally do not eat Baskin Robbins because I don't do dairy. Although they do have plant-based offerings at Baskin Robbins still, all that sugar and all the rest of it. Anyway, I've passed that place like billions of times. Let's see. Oh man, I'll save it for next week. I'll say it real quick. I'll finish from the email. Let's see. One side. Got too far. Okay. Chapter 23. Mary Letourneau's phone calls increased over the school year. The thought did cross Judy's mind that it was a little out of the ordinary. She called Kate Hodgen a number of times. Lauren talked about that. The parasitic behavior of a narcissist in relationships and exploiting a child to boot. What benefit does Katie get out of all of this? 2, she didn't seem particularly interested in talking about Molly at all. Danielle was mystified. The woman she had seen around school in the past was outgoing, friendly, perky, and above all, interested in connecting with parents. Narcissists have no emotional attachment to people. They can discard people at will. Chapter 24. Mary Letourneau would nearly bring herself to tears as she thought of Vili's creative genius. Others didn't see it that way at all. They saw his creations as no better or worse than that of a high school artist who later pumped gas for a living. I wonder if they said it that way. That's Gregg Olsen's phrasing. Anyway, taking such advantage of this child, and in interviews that I have seen after they married as adults, she has no remorse or accountability. She seems to claim that he was the pursuer. She says that a lot, that, Vili came after me, see. Seeing white women as a victim is the default narrative. I would say that is true, too. One side was Vili, the other had the nickname Buddha. Interesting nickname. Did they use his name just because he was Asian? Does not seem to have any relationship to his actual behavior. 3, he continued to press the point in a niggling way. Definition: annoyance, discomfort. This seems like a word that should be avoided by non-white people, for sure. And this word has come up before in the Katherine Massey book club. I believe specifically George Orwell, 1984. And they say we don't read fiction. Sci-fi, no less. He uses the word niggling there as well, that we pointed out. Peculiar usage. 4, nothing hurt like the subject of his father, a convict named Vili Fualaau, privileged non-white male. Most who knew Vili considered Lueva, a former auto mechanic, preacher, and purported father of 18, off limits. Vili was an incredibly vulnerable child. It is clear why she targeted him. Chapter 25. Katie's mother, Judy, mulled it over. She felt closer to her students than her own children. God knows she spent more time with them. Terrible mother, terrible teacher. 2. When it was over, she reached out for her student. I just needed a hug, she said. I'm having a really hard time. Katie hugged her tightly. Yeah, you are, the student said. This parasitic behavior of a narcissist seems almost sexual in hindsight. I would agree. And really, like, you are with these students. I don't know, I don't think Katie is non-white, but either way, why are you here with a child, one of your students, and you're going to them for support because you have a lame marriage, which would also be your fault, at least partially? Like, what? Be a professional. That's something they should talk about when you're going through teacher training as well. Like, come on, man. Chapter, and that's the same thing she said about Vili. Like, yeah, my marriage, and I just needed support. Vili, he was already manly and pursuing me, and I was weak and fragile and white. Chapter 26. Vili and his older brother Perry over there all the time. Vili, in fact, the Letourneau kid said, spent the night frequently. It was a holdover from the final part of the school year when student and teacher burned the midnight oil getting 6th grade yearbook ready for the copy center. Where are the parents? Oh, right. The dad is in jail and the mom is working long hours at the pie factory at some menial job. The pie factory. Non-white people cannot have families or be parents in the global system of racism, white supremacy. 2. Amber and Angie talked about it later. They were amazed by Mary Kay's dedication. I knew she didn't have enough time for her family and school, and here she was taking classes, grooming students. That's the kind that's a sexual predator. That's the kind of teacher that goes to class with one of her students. 4. I would usually make Amber call. I hated calling because I didn't want to get stuck on the phone with her for an hour. She just wouldn't shut up. She'd talk about everything and anything. Parasitic behaviors in relationships by a narcissist, suspected racist. Suck your time and energy for their benefit alone. Something to look out for in people interactions. 5. As the twins entertained the children, they asked what their parents had been up to. Daddy doesn't like the brown boy. White children are not ignorant about racism, white supremacy. How could they be? How could they be? Growing up near White Center, even if they were in Seattle or wherever else, how could they be? That should have been the title of the book. Mommy, Daddy, Fight. About the brown boy. Mary Kay Letourneau, Seattle History. We will be back next week and be thinking about that. Is this racism? Should black people study this here case? Even black people who have no connection to Washington State. Is this relevant? Something to think about if you're going to have children and send them off to school. Wait a minute. You think Mary Kay's ilk is still in the classroom? What? When? Wait a minute. That would be something to think about, and even something to talk to your children about. Mary Kay in the classroom. We'll be here tomorrow. Compensatory call-in, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Sunday as well. Medical apartheid on a sunny summer Sunday. All same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. Might have to have a sober conversation about the child raping teacher at the elementary school. Don't need no mad dog for that discussion. Creator. Help non-white people maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice. Immediately remind us not to waste non-white people's time and energy, especially our own. Stop producing throwaway non-white children to be raped by Mary Kay Letourneau. Cows signing out. No name calling black people. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.